Okay, Mr. Ferguson,
Here.
Mr. Pachos,
Present.
Mr. Baxendale,
Here.
Ms. Wells,
Here.
Mr. Rowena,
Here.
Ms. Byron,
And
Mr. Lingalis, or Miss Lingalis, sorry. Unless your husband's on as well. I wouldn't-
no, I'm here. Ms.
Okay.
Langas.
Thank you.
You're
Mr. Cantor,
Here.
Mr. Mushak,
Here.
and Mr. Schulman.
Here. I'm going to switch around the agenda. Excuse me. I'm going to move our public hearing, City of Norwalk Board of Education, up to the first item on the agenda. I would ask if you're not here for that item, if you would both mute yourself and stop your video. And as we call up the item you're here for, we welcome you to then unmute and start your video again. For the public hearing, I'm going to appoint Ms. Jordan Byron to out of alternate so that she can participate in the entire public hearing and vote on this matter. What that means for the other two alternates is that you're welcome to participate throughout the discussion. But once we close the hearing, you will be asked not to participate any further with further questions or with voting on this item. Given the number of items we have this evening, there will be an opportunity for each of the alternates to fully participate. Mr. Pachos, I believe I'm going to assign you to the 45 High Street LLC project, and Mr. Williams, who has now joined us, to the two referrals, transportation, mobility, and parking, and the special appropriation for the special capital appropriation for a new Norwalk neighborhood school. With that, let me explain how public hearings work. The representative of the applicant, and I may be wrong about this, but I presume it's Mr. Lowe, will explain the project, and if he has other experts with him who he needs to call on to discuss the project, that's fine. Throughout Mr. Lowe's presentation, commission members are welcome to ask questions of Mr. Lowe and the other expert witnesses. After that presentation is completed, we will invite the public to speak, and Mr. Baker will explain to members of the public just how that's done. We do not, as members of the commission, engage with members of the public. After all of those from the public who wish to speak have done so, Mr. Lowe will have an opportunity to respond to any issues that have been raised. We, again, will have an opportunity to ask any questions we wish. We ask that members of the public who wish to speak try to be as concise as possible. We don't place limits on the amount of time you can take for your comments. But again, we ask that you be as concise as possible. And at the same time, ask all the questions or make all of the comments that you feel are necessary for you to make, because you only have one opportunity to speak. Once you've spoken, that opportunity to speak a second time will be unfortunately we'll have to deny. And with that, I'll ask Mr. Lowe to begin the presentation. The project, excuse me, I've got two agendas, both the old one and the new one that we received today. It's 2021-41 SP, City of Norwalk Board of Education, 12 Noah Lot Lane, construction of new Cranberry Elementary School. Mr. Lowe, the floor is yours.
Good evening. My name is Alan Lowe. I'm the building and facility manager for the City of Norwalk. Tonight, the city is presenting a very exciting project for the city for building a new Cranberry School on its current location. Excuse me. I have my whole design team, project team with us tonight, as a number of people, and I think they will introduce themselves when they speak. The city funded probably it's about $45 million for the construction of this new school. And generally speaking, it's the same size as what's in terms of population wise, about the same as is now. But it is scheduled to, because it's on a AAA residence zone, a special permit is required. So that's why we're here tonight to request a special permit for this project. I think you may hear some in the public about there's some concerns about neighbors and stuff, which we have addressed previously at this CBA meeting, and then with agreement with the neighbors, we've gone through CBA, and at the same time we got the variance approval. We also went through wetlands already. But without any further comment from me, I would like to request my project team to proceed with their presentation. It will probably take about 15 minutes.
Sorry to interrupt, but for those members of the commission who may not know, why was it necessary for you to go to the ZBA?
Oh, because we requested a variance for a setback requirement. The zoning regulation, there was very specific requirement that's kind of interesting. I mean, I think Lisa Gates from the architecture firm will go through that a little bit for the member of the commission. It's a rear yard setback. The property is very interesting because it's such a huge property, but the frontage is not actually technically not Noah Lot Lane. It's actually on Field Street, right? So
Field Street, yes.
Field Street. So the rear yard is actually a different side of the property. So and then there's a formula that's associated with zoning regulations that trigger a requirement for a variance. That's the reason why we had to go to ZBA for a variance, which was approved with some conditions, which all our drawings has reflected those changes. So without any further comments, Lisa, would you introduce yourself and present the project? And this is going to take about 10 to 15 minutes or so.
Correct.
I'll remind the commission members that if it's necessary, if there's an important question to be asked, you may interrupt, but please try to do it as gently as possible.
Gently.
I am accustomed to interruptions and they are fine. My name is Lisa Yates. I'm from Antonazi Associates. We're the architects for the project. We do have a large team here tonight for the presentation. It will be primarily me and Kent Gannon from Stantec, our civil engineer. There are also other civil engineers here with him. Can you see my cursor?
Yes, we can.
Okay, that's good. So I will, if I'm pointing at stuff, it won't be in vain. So In an effort to keep things clear and also concise, I respect that. We've followed the organizational points that Brian Baker put together in his memorandum for the commission. And so we'll just follow the same basic order. And in some cases, we actually show portions of his text where we get into more of the detailed areas. So these are our existing conditions for the Cranberry School. This is Field Street, which is, as Alan said, technically the front yard. Noah Lot Lane. The school is, its address is 10 Noah Lot Lane, also known as 12 Noah Lot Lane. We have Grumman Avenue over here to the west, where we have some abutting properties. And it was our goal from the very beginning of this project. So Cranberry Park is to the north and there's open space to the south. And I know there's a property line here, but functionally when you're using the park and using the trails, this area, this forested area is park-like and it bleeds into the park and it's used by the community. And we wanted, from the very beginning, we wanted to stay within the currently developed area to preserve this wooded area. And then as we got deeper in and did our full wetlands flagging, that became even more critical since the site is, at least half of the site is wetlands, wetland upland review areas of the wetlands are shown here in blue. And then this little dashed line around them represents the wetland upland review area. And just our yellow circle here gets a little bit squeezed by that as we look at it more closely. So our proposed project shown here. So this is zoomed in a little bit, but for reference, here's our yellow circle. We have the existing school, which will remain open during at least the first portion of construction while we build the new school, which is shown here in orange. So the school is 62,300 square feet. This size is dictated by the number of neighborhood children that are served, which is 497. The project was approved by the Conservation Commission. When we were in ZBA, we'll talk about this shortly, working with the neighbors, we made some minor changes. So we have 2 approval dates from the Conservation Commission because we went back to address those slight changes. And then the variance was approved last November. Don't worry, we'll get into that in greater depth. Now I would like to briefly hand it over to Kent from Stantec. He's going to take you a little bit deeper into the site and the site amenities.
Good evening, everyone. Again, this is Kent Gannon with Stantec. We are the site civil landscape architects for the project. So Lisa broke down the site briefly. The existing building obviously located in the area where you see the green highlights there. And the new proposed building will be located to the west of the existing building and is highlighted by orange. There's a couple highlights I want to hit here to kind of explain how we laid out the site and some of the reasoning from doing so. And I'm going to start off with probably the most important part, and that's the separation of the parent and bus loop. So the site currently operates with 1 entrance in and 1 exit. So anybody coming and going from the school site obviously has to use this entrance and this exit, which is both located along Noah Lot Lane. What we've done is separated this into 2 entrances and 2 exits. And this allows us again to separate bus traffic, service drive entrance as from the parent loop. And what this allows is for an increase in safety in the area. And one of the most important things is to get the cars you currently see queued along Noah Lot Lane off of Noah Lot Lane and into this parent loop during busy times of either morning or afternoon pickup and drop off. So that parent loop again, so the entrance and exit to the parent loop is going to be located just north of the existing entrance of Noah Lot Lane for the school, which Lisa's highlighting there. So this will be a one-way loop. It's a rather large loop, but this was necessary in order to get the proper queuing length for the morning drop off and pickup. And there also is access within this loop to a 69 space parking lot, which is located right there. And the exit for this loop is adjacent to the entrance. So it's a one-way, or it's a two-way exit entrance located there. The bus loop, yep, go ahead.
Can 2 cars fit through the loop? Or if you get stuck in the middle, are you just in there?
the loop is 20 feet wide. So if someone were to break down or
Okay.
there's a car stuck, you could go around there. Yeah, one of that, it's also a requirement from the fire marshal in order to have in the safety officers in order to have a 20-foot loop. The bus service and staff parking entrance will be one-way entrance and one-way exit. The exit will be the existing exit onto Norwalk Lane, which is just south and off the screen there where Lisa's highlighting. One of the things you'll notice too is the continuation of this loop sort of to the west side or the back of the school. And then you'll see, a large cul-de-sac type area right there at the back of the school. And this is going to serve a couple of purposes. This large area will function as a play area for students during the day. This is important, obviously, if you've had heavy rainfall, and if anyone knows the area that well, the ground tends to be a little soggy out there as it is circled by wetlands. So this area provides a space where it's clean, safe, slip resistant for children to play and for them to have outside time during wet periods. But it also serves as a turnaround for both service and emergency vehicles, which was also a requirement that you have access on 3 sides of the building. So this kind of serves a dual purpose. One of the things that's hard to see in this screen is though we are proposing to have a gate towards the southwest corner of the building. And this is to prevent someone from during the middle of the day when children can be out there, or other times you can close that gate, obviously, and then it prevents, an accident from happening or someone driving back there if they're lost or not, don't quite know where they should be at the school.
We
And
have
Lisa-
one at the parent loop also, another
Yep.
gate.
Yeah, exactly. So there's one at the parent loop also. And the thinking here is, it doesn't prevent anyone from using the parking area that's located here, but it would stop someone from driving up the parent loop during times where there may be a baseball game or a soccer game, because you see these 2 highlighted areas. We have a youth baseball field, softball field proposed, and also space for youth soccer field. And then lastly, a tennis court play area as well. And a couple other things to know, you'll see on the north end of the school, we have some proposed play areas. We have a 2 to 5 year old play area where Lisa's highlighting there, just the northeast of the school. And then to the west is our 5 to 12 play area. So there's a playscape, large playscape feature, and then a swing set area. And that's located just adjacent to that turnaround I talked about before. And just, one last point, I guess, just south of the school is where we currently have the service area located, and also where the dumpster will be located. And this is adjacent to the cafeteria space and kitchen space.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Kent.
You're welcome.
We'll get into some of the other elements as we go through the slides, including the landscape screening at the west side. The next one is also density and use of bulk of buildings.
Okay, yeah, so this is taken right off some of our engineered plans, and this is just the table, the zoning table we include on our plans, and it kind of highlights where we stand existing versus our proposed conditions. So we rather comfortably meet most of these conditions, with the exception of one, which we'll get into here as we move along the presentation. As you can see, it's a large site. It's over 1 million square feet. So you're well above the minimum lot area required, and then obviously well below the maximum building area. We're only at 3.2% proposed. Maximum building height, Lisa will get into that a little bit later in the presentation. But I do want to hit a little bit on the lot widths here. So Alan hinted at it a little bit earlier as well. The front of the street is the front of the lot is Field Street. So Grumman would be where the rear of the lot is located. So the required setbacks from those, we meet the front easily. Obviously, you only have 80 feet, which is required, or it need not exceed 80 feet. And then we have, over 1,400 feet for a front setback. And our side setback, I think the minimum setback is 178 feet. and that need not exceed 40 feet. It's the rear setback where we ran into the issue, which required the variance. So the zoning regs include an equation to calculate the required rear setback for a special permit use in the AAA zone. Lisa's circling it there. So it's 30 feet plus half a foot for each width of building over 40 feet measured parallel to the front property line.
You're digging in. I'll put you here.
Okay, yeah, we'll jump back and forth. Thank you.
Mhm.
So it's kind of a mouthful, but we included this little diagram that helps explain how we got to the requirement of 315 or 223 foot required setback. So you see there, our building line measured parallel to Field Street, which is our front, is 425 feet. So if you were to do the math, you start at 30 feet, you take half a foot for every building width over 40 feet. That gets you to that 223 foot requirement. What we provide with this building orientation is 70.53 feet at the closest point to that rear property line. And so that's why we went and presented in front of the Board of Appeals.
I'm going to go backwards briefly to touch on the height of the building. So technically the requirement for schools, you're allowed 50 feet maximum to the roof. But within the AAA zone, it's 35. And our roof is at 31 feet. We have some parapets which go up to 34. But we also have a lot of low areas that are 17 feet or 21 feet, depending on where you are going around the building. And this is, I'll show you more shots of the rest of the building as we go through. But it was important to us to keep the height in sort of the residential character. And it also makes sense for an elementary school to have only 2 stories. So the conditions of the variance. We worked extensively with the neighbors as we were looking at the variance and before. And we developed a lot of solutions to issues with the proximity of the building to the properties along the west side here. And the solutions were built into the conditions of the variance, which are listed here at the right. And the first one was to increase the landscape screening along the west side. And on this plan, we've colored the trees that were added for the variance here in green. And there is woods behind them in just about all cases, but they're deciduous. And so the screening is evergreen, sort of a staggered double row for good visual and also acoustical screening. And then the dumpster location, again, when we started, the dumpsters were over here, and it was not a problem at all for us to move them closer to the service entrance. Also, initially, we had tennis courts and basketball hoops over here on the west side of the building. So at the request of the neighbors, we have taken the tennis court and placed it over here on the east side, and we have put our basketball hoops inside the tennis court. And then there was a request to relocate the building. We were able to move the building 10 feet to the north. We were not able to move it further north or further west. Further north, we would have had issues with the wetlands in this area. And further to the west, you start getting interference with the existing building. Also, there's an existing bus loop here. So this circle here is an existing tree, which, if you know the site, is in the center of the existing bus loop. And we're saving this tree, but the bus loop itself needs to be maintained for the school to stay open. So we could reduce it slightly, but there's only so far you could go. So we took it as far as we could. And then finally, the most important condition is to continue to consult with and coordinate and collaborate with the neighbors, and we will continue to do so. So then on the other side, what are the benefits of the variance to the Cranberry School project? And they're large. So locating the building here allows us to preserve the wetland, which is it's a Kent looked it up for us. It's a state requirement as well as a city requirement, and conservation approval would have been difficult, if not impossible, to obtain building a new school in the wetlands. We also had a major goal of preserving the forest in this area, as I mentioned at the beginning, contiguous with Cranberry Park. And we very much would like to keep this school occupied during construction so that the children are not displaced. So those are the benefits for the project. So this one
Lisa,
is,
can
yes.
you just go back to that previous? Yeah, thank you. That evergreen buffer,
Mhm.
what are the trees that you're using, and how tall will they initially be?
So there are, I think, 3 kinds, Kent. You can help keep me honest here. We have green giant arborvitae are most of them. I think we have some hollies, some American hollies. And
Yeah, I think there's some white pine.
a few white pines.
Red cedar.
Mhm.
And I'm looking at the landscape plan now. It looks like 8 to 10 foot height for green giant, eastern red cedar, and 10 to 12 for the white pine.
Yeah, and I believe the zoning variance stipulated 90 trees, and there are a few more than that in here.
Thank you.
So, mhm. So we conducted a traffic study. I don't know if you want to go through this quickly, since Stantec performed the study.
Yeah, yep, I can. Yeah, so obviously we completed a traffic study as required, and what we did is we looked at the 2023 no build versus the build alternatives. And to really kind of put it simply, it found no significant impact to the surrounding roadways. There were a couple kind of big takeaways for that, to kind of summarize everything. And that was that, you know, there'll be minimal changes to the level of service within the study intersections, which are highlighted on the figure to the right of the picture there. Those little dots were our study intersections. You know, a review of the crash data didn't indicate the presence of any existing safety issues or abnormal crash patterns in the area. And one of the big ones that I kind of mentioned before, the proposed parent loop should really reduce or eliminate the parking you see that occurs along Noah Lot Lane during school drop off and pickup. And this obviously improves the safety for the students, parents, pedestrians who are walking to school, bike riders who may be in the area, so on and so forth. So, you know, in summation, you know, the project can accommodate the existing improvements without any significant impacts to the traffic operations or safety in the study area.
So this section was actually taken directly from Brian's memorandum that he prepared for you, so that we could, you know, continue to be concise. Some of these I'm going to go through in more detail. I marked them with a star. So this first one talks about sidewalks. We were able to confirm for Brian that the existing asphalt sidewalks along Noah Lot are 5 feet wide, as shown in the existing drawings, and we will maintain them. Utilities, it's worthy to note that this building is on septic currently and will continue to be on septic, and we've done a lot of research on this, and we are able to reuse the existing septic fields. Adverse impacts from noise, odor, fumes, dust, and artificial lighting. The next 2 slides are going to talk about lighting and also noise, but the dust and fumes in the occupied condition should not be an issue, and the contractor will take measures to minimize it during construction. The signage in harmony with the neighborhood. So we plan to reuse the existing wood school identification sign, and we have some very modest directional signage for the parking. It's very minimal. Pin letters on the front of the building identifying the building. Adequacy of yards and open space. So we've been talking about this a lot with the setbacks and the maintenance of the park. So this is the site photometric study, just an example. So this is just a portion of the site. This is actually where the exit is, and north is to the right here, so it's rotated, but you see what looks like little dots all over it. Here's a blow up. This is a foot candle readout that we do over the entire site. So we use full cutoff lighting, which means it's only shining down basically. And we maintain no more than 0.1 foot candles at the property line. So this, you can see where it says SL, that's where the light is. So underneath the light, you have 3 foot candles. And then off to the side, it tapers to 0 or 0.1. And this does not take the landscape screening into account, so it gets even better. And then sound study, this is just an example of some of the work that we've done. We had an acoustician, our acoustician for the project, review our generator, because we know that's something that's loud and it's outside and it can possibly bother the neighbors. I mean, we have to be compliant with local noise ordinance at the property line for everything, but this was an area of particular concern. We're putting a sound enclosure on the generator and having a professional check it out, condition at the property line. So this is
I'm
further.
sorry, Lisa, I just want to add one more thing about the generator.
Yes.
We do an automatic testing of the generator once a week. The agreement was that we would do it on a time of the day that has minimum impact to the neighbors. So we probably run for about 15 to 20 minutes at most once a week. And we probably will schedule for a daytime. It wouldn't be early in the morning kind of thing. So we understand the neighbors' concern about noise. So that's what we're doing. Thank you.
No, thanks, Alan. That was a helpful interruption. Keep them coming. So the this goes back into Brian's memorandum, and it talks about harmonizing with the existing neighborhood, and this gets into the height and also the fact that there is a school there now, and so there's no change of use. The existing land use in the area, as we've discussed, we have Cranberry Park all around and single family homes to the west and to a little bit of the north, a little bit of the south. Proximity of community facilities. Well, obviously the school is a community facility, and so is Cranberry Park. The compliance with the we call it the POCD, the Plan of Conservation and Development. I'm going to get into that more on the next slide and kind of tie that together with Cranberry Park and open spaces. Conservation of wetlands we've covered. I'm just noting here that our amended permit with the ZBA updates that I've now gone through, that was approved officially. The permit was approved yesterday, and no zoning violations on the property. So this is the Plan of Conservation and Development slide, just talking about, so it's a pretty large document. One of the goals of the plan is to continue to support development of the public schools, and which this of course does, but also this project, by preserving the open forested land contiguous with Cranberry Park, is very much in line with the goals for Cranberry Park. I just thought this was interesting. I did not know Cranberry Park is almost 40% of your available parkland. And then when the workshop was held for this neighborhood, the natural areas, especially Cranberry Park, the most commonly cited asset. So we're preserving that to the greatest extent possible. So here
Lisa,
are some, yes.
I was just going to jump in there real quick. I think, another one of the priority concepts and strategies of the POCD was to enhance and protect environmental resources, which we've kind of explained and said. So I just wanted to throw that in there, that it's obviously we're meeting that goal as well by keeping the building, locating the building where we are, and staying out of the wetlands and the open space.
Thanks, Ken. So this is a slightly more updated version of the rendering that you saw for the heights. We've developed the plaza a little bit further. There's the bus drive is here in the foreground. So this is the southeast corner of the building right here. And this is our cafeteria. Our entrance is beyond, and then the rest of the school follows behind. The parent drop-off loop is over here on the right-hand side. So it was, in the look of this building, the site is such a terrific site. And you can't help but be aware of it when you're designing the building. And it, you know, we really wanted to make a building that suited the site and felt good in this park-like setting in the woods. And that carries over into our selection of the materials. We kept it very, you know, so we were bringing the indoors outside and the outside in. We have this dark brick, which we've used on many projects. It kind of, it's sort of like a graphite pencil. It gets a nice glow depending on how the sunlight hits it. We have some detailed banding in a complementary brick. And then in areas that project out from the building, we're using a lighter brick for variety, so it's not monotonous as you go around the building. And we have some here at the base of the cafeteria in this fin, and also down at the library. I'll show you in a minute. We're using natural stone, and we're using wood for our large window assemblies. So the inside and the roof deck will be this cedar. And so this view focuses more on the entrance of the building. So it's like all the Norwalk school projects, this is a hardened entrance. So it's ballistic glass. And this is the cafeteria again. This is the administration wing, the library beyond. This is a better view of the parent drop-off loop. And so here the bus loop would sort of be behind the viewer. And this is from further north, looking back toward the entrance, toward the south in the cafeteria, and it focuses more and shows you more about what the learning commons looks like. And this is really where we're focusing on the more fancy details, but the rest of the building sort of follows this basic idea. So this projecting block here would be the light colored brick, and then as we set back, we have the dark colored brick. But we have a lot of volumes coming in and out to break it down so it doesn't feel like a massive building. And then I wanted to touch on sustainability. So that was an important factor in the development of the design. So after the project is completed, the Board of Education is going to work with a power purchasing agreement, and we will put solar on this building. We are doing a design to like a test fit design right now for the building to make absolutely sure that we have our steel is big enough, we have all the conduits in the right place, and everything's ready to go for solar.
How much of the building will be powered by that?
I believe I actually have that on another slide. No, I don't. I think it's like a 30%, 20 or 30%, but I don't have the exact figures and they're still working on them. So all Connecticut public schools are required to comply with Connecticut high performance. It's similar to LEED Silver, if you're familiar with the LEED program. It's a 28 point, you have to get at least 28 points. I think at least 12 of them are mandatory. So you get things like low flow plumbing fixtures, and you use care in the selection of your materials. So you get local materials and recycled materials, that sort of thing. And there are a lot of points. I won't go through them all, but it's something we've focused on. And then I'm going to get it. We also, for systems in this building, we worked together. We reviewed multiple options for a lot of different things, but I'm going to focus on a few. And Kent, I was going to ask you to talk about drainage before I dig into HVAC.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the strategies we explored was incorporating pervious pavements or pervious pavers in locations throughout the site. It's something we look at often on a lot of sites we develop. In this kind of setting, what usually kind of pushes us away from that is the maintenance involved in it. And that's kind of exactly why we don't have any pervious pavements proposed in this one. In order to maintain those systems, you've got to really monitor them, and you've got to vacuum them regularly to keep the porous nature of them clean and open. And so in order to do that, I think the school would have had to, or the city would have had to purchase another piece of equipment. And Lisa, you can, or Alan, if I'm incorrect, I think that equipment's $250,000 piece of equipment that would need to be.
The vacuum vacuums all of the particulate out of the pervious pavement.
Yeah, exactly. One of the other things we see.
Actually, I talked to DPW about it too. The city's typical sweeper does not have the capability to vacuum to that level to clean out all the dust and sand within the voids of the pavement. So after a few years, the system will clog, and it's more of a problem for us because we might have eliminate drainage storage capacity. So it becomes more of an issue. So that was one of the biggest concerns that we have.
Yeah, so I was actually going to hint on that, Alan. What we typically do is, with an eye to the future, knowing that these systems, can be clogged and can become, ineffective, we usually will put in some, you might think you could have some savings by eliminating some piping or some catch basins. We usually put those in anyway as kind of a safety measure in case the system isn't maintained how it should be and it fails. So you wouldn't really realize in this setting, we wouldn't just eliminate all the basins or piping. So you're not going to, even if we were to incorporate some pervious pavement, we wouldn't see the savings or maybe the full savings we would for the elimination of some catch basins, pipings, manholes, and that sort of thing.
Lisa, I think this presentation get a little bit long, so can we just get to finish it?
We have one more slide.
Thank you.
I agree with you. We're getting up there. So I just briefly wanted to touch on HVAC sustainability. So we start with sort of a blue sky approach, and we looked at a lot of super efficient ways to run the building. It's a new building, so we have the opportunity to have a very thermally efficient building envelope. We are working with Eversource also to model the building to see how it performs and check out what our rebates will be. And we presented various options to the Board of Ed and the city. And we took a balanced approach that works in real life with the way the school is run, but is also highly efficient, so we're using a heat pump system, which is electric, which means that we're not bringing undue amounts of fossil fuel onto the property. So as the idea is as electric facilities get more efficient in the future, we don't have to upgrade the school. But I'll answer questions on that. But in the meantime, I'm going to park it here. These are the staff recommendations. Sure. We worked with the neighbors, no bad traffic outcomes, sustainable site.
I think that ends our presentation.
Yep.
Thank you.
Would you like me to stop share or leave it open?
Lou, you're muted.
Why don't you stop
Louis.
share for now?
Lou, you're muted.
Thank you. Before we open it up to the public, I just wanted to see if commission members have any additional questions at this point. If not, we'll go into public comment.
Probably stop share if you don't mind.
Got it.
Hi, a question?
Please go ahead.
Yes, good evening. I do have a question regarding the artist rendering of the building itself. I didn't see any wheelchair ramps.
The building is fully accessible. You didn't see any wheelchair ramps because we primarily use sloping walks outside. So they're shallow enough that you don't need railings.
From the curb to the, from the street to the curb?
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
I have a
One
question.
Oh,
Sorry, who else was there?
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I'll go. Did you guys look at a canopy at the drop off or pickup areas? Because the bad weather, is a big problem here in New England. And when it's raining or even in the hot sun, a sheltered area for people to wait, either being picked up or dropped off. I didn't see any sheltered areas like that except up by the door. Is there a reason why we avoid those? I know it's obviously an expense, but it seems to me that it would be a real convenience for the children and the parents.
It was something that we were considering in the front, but I don't know that we were considering covering the whole entrance plaza. There's a large tree there. So it would have been difficult to get much cover out there. The canopy itself in front of the entrance is quite large. So that should help. And there is a on the other side, there's an outdoor area that could be used for teaching or play that has canvas on the top, which
Thank you.
is. Mhm.
Nick, you had a question?
I'm actually good. I misread something in the staff report.
Oh, okay. Anything else before we open it up?
Yes, Lou, may I ask Tammy Langalis?
Sure.
Hi, thank you all for your nice presentation. Clarification on the area that has the fields and tennis court. Is that still run by the Parks and Recs? Or is it the Board of Ed?
Alan is nodding, so that's a yes.
All recreation facility within all school property is run by Recreation and Parks Department.
Okay,
They're
thank you.
maintained by them.
I'm wondering on the tennis court, if they considered putting pickleball on that. Maybe it's a multi-purpose surface. I think that's, I'm hearing it's very
Yeah.
easy for children to learn, and 4 sets of kids can play on it instead of 1 for tennis. Just curious about that. And then with regard to the driveway that loops around the field and you have the ability to close it off, one of the things I love about the Cranberry site is that it does have all of the forest, and that's a lot of blacktop. Would a driveway that went sort of on the, I believe it's the south side, sort of just on the edge of the parent parking lot, would that be long enough to accommodate all of the parents that drop their children off without having the overflow onto the street, so that you could actually eliminate some of the blacktop area?
I think one of the primary objectives is try to keep as many cars within the property as possible. So I think the two is that diametrically kind of counter each other somewhat. If you're trying to bring the cars onto the property so it doesn't go into the street, then we have more blacktop. So I don't think we can achieve both objectives at the same time. I think bring cars, parents and cars into the property and to stack on the property, it's a more desirable thing at this point. We are maintaining, it is a huge property with wetlands and stuff, so none of that we are touching. So I think to the extent that we can reduce this, any kind of traffic safety impact on the street, I think it's important that we do that.
So
Yeah, and to
we-
piggyback on that, we actually are reducing the overall impervious area on the site compared to existing conditions. It might not seem like it because you look at the new plan and you see these big drives and stuff, but the existing building footprint is rather large. And when you're out there, there's a lot of paved area that kind of encapsulates the existing building. So when we did the calculations for the drainage study, there is actually a slight reduction. I don't remember what it was. I do remember we provided it for the wetlands agency, but there is a reduction of overall impervious area.
Great.
Okay, one other quick thing too, Mike Mushak will probably appreciate this, but if you do on the evergreens, arborvitae are absolute deer's most popular food, and Leland cypress they don't seem to like. So rather than putting in arborvitae that will get munched on over time, you might consider Leland cypress.
I can respond to that, Tammy, actually. The green giants, they don't even look like the traditional arborvitae, which are the emerald greens. I'm speaking as a landscape architect, so I know what I'm talking about. The emerald, the ones that are like a soldier row, the old-fashioned arborvitaes are definitely deer food. They're lollipopped by deer, very commonly, and there's a lot of deer in this location. But the green giants are deer resistant. They're from the West Coast, and they've adapted in an area where there was deer feeding traditionally, and so it's nice, and they also grow very fast. So I would applaud the plant choices here, actually. But your concern about arborvitae is well understood, because a lot of other varieties would be eaten up.
Thank you, Mike. I'll put them on my good list. Thank you.
I have a quick question. This is Steve. Hey, Alan, how you doing today?
Good.
Good. Question regarding Eversource. I have notes here about the challenges with Eversource before. Has that been rectified with this plan? Is that why we're moving the building over? Utilities in that area? Has that been taken care of? I have notes that it was an issue with Eversource in the past? Has that been taken care of?
I'm not sure what you are referring to.
You remember they were
Eversource,
talking
we-
about upgrading the air conditioning in the school?
No, that was a different, oh yeah, the Cranberry School traditionally has this pancake breakfast thing that draw power. So it's not from coming outside, it's really internally, the building capacity doesn't allow multiple hot plates running at the same time. So it's an internal problem. So it's, yeah, it had nothing to do with Eversource. It's really our old electrical system. It's undersized to do what they want to do. So we needed more outlets and more circuits in the building. So that was what part was the problem. But separately on Eversource, the only thing we have right now with Eversource is that we couldn't get gas to the property. Typically, we would prefer gas to run heating system because we can run condensing boiler much easier and more energy effective. But because we're north of Merritt Parkway, we can't get gas to this part of town, as well as there's not enough residents in here to make it cost effective to bring a bigger gas line to the area. So we have to resource to electric as a part of the heating system kind of thing. But it's actually the way energy is used right now. It's very interesting. Electrical, as much as traditionally it's a very expensive item, it's changing in many perspectives because the equipment very efficiently built, as well as the source of electricity. I mean, I think the long-term environmental perspective of electricity is that the generation will be greener than fossil fuel on site. So I think those are something we did talk about when we look at the infrastructure system that we're going to build into this building.
So with the solar being implemented, this would also, shave some of the operating costs going forward with this new project, correct?
Yeah. I mean, to
Like 25%?
I really don't know because I mean, Lisa mentioned some number. I'm just surprised at 30%.
Okay.
But at the same time, I didn't want to question challenge her publicly. At
Thank
least.
you.
Makes sense.
You can challenge me tomorrow. They're
But at the same time,
still
it's,
working out the exact amount.
Yeah, we are going to try and maximize. And also, I look at the spacing of the panel, how close to the edge of the building and stuff. And we'll continue to evolve those designs because the design ultimate is coming from the solar vendor, who's actually the Board of Education execute a power purchase agreement with 20 years.
Okay.
So they were the one that actually go to final design. We should want to make sure that we have the conduit run that we need inside the building already, so they don't have to do construction in the building after we finish, as well as structurally we can support the system. So that's our primary objective at this point. And the board is going to go out to make those agreements for long-term leasing and stuff.
All right, thanks. Appreciate it.
All right, Brian, you want to explain to the public how they can access the meeting and speak?
Sure. So if you're a member from the public and you'd like to speak in favor or in opposition to this application, you can use the raise your hand tool. It's at the bottom of your screen under everybody's faces. If you're dialed in on a phone, you'd hit *9 and that will raise your hand and I can bring you over to speak. And then just a reminder to say your name and address on the record for us.
Hi there, good evening. This is Pamela Young for Kristen Lane in Norwalk. We live very close to Cranberry School. We've had 3 children go through the school and have one currently who will be a senior next year. So sadly, she would not be able to enjoy the new school. However, my husband and myself have been involved for years, along with hundreds of families that have been working so hard to get the improvements so needed for this school and the upgrade that anyone who goes to the school can see is so desperately needed. I've been on these calls and I probably my question is, it feels like The Amazing Race or one of these reality shows where it's like, what is the next challenge? Is this are we finally, I feel like I've celebrated 2 years ago and it got approved and the mayor approved. And then I celebrated when it got approved for, it got approved again. And then we just seem to be going through hurdles. And it seems I'm so impressed by the group, the architectural firm addressing all these issues that have come up by some of the families alongside the school. It seems like everything has been handled so caringly and professionally. it's like, I don't know what could possibly, I don't see that anything could possibly come up at this point to negate it. And I hope, I do want to just point out from the last, one of the calls that has been more recently, something had been suggested by one opposing with a dramatic expression of what expected would happen with dirty waters going through the house. And funny enough, that week, there was a storm and the children were kept from going outside the school because there was a giant lake formed in the fields, as happens with these big storms that we're getting and the weather patterns. Just, I can't express how much it is needed. The community will so benefit for years. The children will benefit for years. I applaud all of you putting all the time to it, and thank you for the efforts. I just hope to hear that would tonight be the final decision and confirmation we could really celebrate and be excited about this being the final meeting before it would be approved, and we know that it would be starting to be built next year or in April. I'm sorry, April. Is this the final meeting?
So they'll address comments at the end once everyone's done speaking, Pam.
Okay, I just want to thank you all, and I can't imagine there. It's like everything possible has been said to try to attempt to stop it. I just want to speak for hundreds of families that I know have interest and would love to see for the next generation. We want to do better for our kids, right? I won't even enjoy it. I know so many families whose kids have graduated and have put so much effort into helping to get to this point. And I know that even though some of their kids won't even be able to enjoy it, we will all be celebrating. So I thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, if anyone else is looking to speak regarding this application, use the raise your hand feature or hit *9.
Hello, I'm Julia Wennerstrom, a former 5th grader at 1 Oxyark Lane. I was a former Cranberry student. I wanted to ask about the new school and would we be able to allow more teachers and or students to be able to access it, since for our classes, we had a lot of teachers who weren't able to be there and the classes were getting bigger and bigger and out of control.
Okay.
Thank you for your question.
Let's see.
Hi, this is Matt Burry. I live at 2 Noah Lane. We're the only other property that's on Noah Lane. And so we're one of the ones that have had a lot of conversations with the city over the last few months. And I guess just for transparency's sake, I just want to make you guys aware that there is an appeal on the ZBA approval. We've been working in good faith with the city to finalize a settlement, but it's been a slow process, unfortunately. So that's still moving along, and we hope to get it done. Well, we were hoping that we would have been done by this point, but it's just moved slowly. And then in the plans that we just went through, the solar panels are a completely new element in all these conversations. It's never once come up. So I'm just interested to understand, when did that enter? And it looked like we were talking about rooftop, but the drawings looked like they were on the ground. So I just want to understand where those are, how those are going to, where they're going to exist. And I guess we'll start with those questions.
Thank you.
Okay, next.
Hello?
Hello.
Am I on?
We can hear you.
I'm Matt. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, Matt Forte, 258 Grumman Avenue. I am one of the neighbors that had worked with the city to iron some stuff out. For transparency to continue with what Matt Burry said, it wasn't an easy process. We had to get together as a group. We put in countless hours. We went to dozens of meetings between the neighborhood and then meeting with the city. We had to hire an attorney finally. So I heard Alan and Lisa both said, you know, we worked in good faith with the neighbors and everything was great, but I want you guys to understand the amount of work that went into this and how many times, I think it was shot down by the zoning board of appeals, maybe 3 times, where Alan was told to go back and work with the neighbors and go back and work with the neighbors. Well, at the final zoning board of appeal meeting, we all stood down because we have a good faith agreement. That was mid-November. We're here in mid-January and we still do not have a signed commitment of what the agreement was. We have had to have our attorney file an appeal. He's had to file 2 extensions. And now we're told that it's extended out to January 25th. And if we don't have it ironed out by then, we could file another extension. And every time we file an extension, it's another $500 for our attorney fees. And if we have a deal and it's agreed to, I don't know why we can't just finalize the deal and then you guys can move along with the project. We all agree that that Cranberry School is old and needed to be rebuilt, or a new school needed to be built. None of us were attesting that. We had some issues. They're supposedly settled. I don't know why it takes more than 2 months to finalize the agreement and how we could be here even voting on something that is currently under appeal. That's it.
Thank you.
Okay, next.
Hi, my name is Heidi Alterman. I live at 29 Sherwood Street in Norwalk. I live in the Cranberry section, and I'm a parent of 2 children at Cranberry Elementary. I just wanted to comment on, I apologize, I forgot the woman's name that was talking about the blacktop, but I wanted to point out the school has been really resourceful about when there is heavy rains and the ground is saturated. They actually use the blacktops for the kids to have recess and things like that. And especially during COVID, when children had to eat lunch outside and things like that, they always made really good use of the blacktop. So I just wanted to point that out and say thank you to everybody here. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, and last call, if anyone wants to speak on this application, you can use the raise your hand tool.
Good evening. My name is April Wennerstrom. I live at Oxy Oak Lane. That was my daughter, Angelia, who spoke a few moments ago. I want to also applaud and support everyone who's worked on this project to get it through. I commend the families who are struggling with the idea of a new school being built in their backyards. And I am very concerned for those families who are opposing. On behalf of Cranberry School, my community, and more than anything, the thousands of kids who've had to go through the old Cranberry School, I understand the commitment of this group and just want to say thank you. And my hope is that our school and our community will be better very soon in the future. So thank you again.
Thank you.
And Mario, did you want to speak at this portion or after we close the public portion?
I wanted to speak, I guess during this portion, but after the public has had an opportunity to finish, after public comment is finished. So I just wanted to respond on behalf of the applicant to a few of the comments that were made by some of the neighbors.
All right, Mr. Schulman, you want to do that as part of the rebuttal, or would you like him to do that now?
I was going to do it as part of the rebuttal. I just wanted, just to be clear, I was planning on doing it as part of the rebuttal.
That's fine. Do we have other speakers?
I believe that's it. Yep.
Okay, then we'll turn it back to the applicant, and Attorney Capola will, I guess, comment first. Then Alan, the rest is up to you.
Thank you. If I may, on behalf of the applicant, my name is Mario Capola. I am Corporation Counsel for the City of Norwalk. I practice law as a member of the Norwalk Law Department located at City Hall. So I just wanted to respond to just a few comments from Mr. Burry and Mr. Forte. So I got involved in the project after one of the ZBA hearings where issues were raised in response to concerns voiced by the neighbors. And I worked with the neighbor's attorney, Joel Green, to determine what the neighbors' issues were and to find a way for us to try to resolve those issues. Quite frankly, the administration, starting with the mayor, was clear to the project team and myself specifically that to the extent it was reasonably possible to make changes or do things that could reasonably address the neighbors' concerns, we should be doing so. And we made every effort to do so. We had a number of meetings with them as well as their council. Also, the neighbors were reasonable in their approach. And I thought their council did a great job of working with the city to identify those issues and try to work through them. And at the Zoning Board of Appeals, it was represented that we had an agreement in concept with the neighbors, that there were certain conditions that should be put on the approval of the ZBA to address their concerns. And that it was also known that there were some additional issues that the neighbors wanted addressed if possible, and that we would work in good faith to try to address those issues. So where we're at right now, just to be clear, is that Attorney Green provided me with some additional information, documents recently. One thing I'm waiting for from him, for example, one of those things was a landscaping plan proposed by the neighbors at the cost of the city to provide additional buffering on their properties. I left off with Attorney Green, I think it was probably a few weeks ago now. Things were busy for everybody, with the holidays and the new year, that he was going to review the Zoning Board of Appeals decision, particularly the conditions of approval that they put on their decision, and determine if there was additional terms that he would like to request from the city, and that we would consummate those terms, those additional terms, in a settlement agreement to resolve the neighbor's appeal of the Zoning Board of Appeals decision. And so I would term it as a friendly appeal. Attorney Green contacted me before he served the city with the appeal. I said that's probably the best mechanism for us to continue to work together, because the ZBA has given its decision. It put the conditions on. There's some additional conditions that you want. And I think the best way to do that is you file your appeal, and then we could come up with a settlement agreement, take the settlement agreement to the Zoning Board of Appeals for approval. If it requires the city to spend some money, for example, to provide landscaping on the neighbors' parcels, that we would also take the settlement agreement to the Common Council for approval, and obviously as required by Section 8-8N of the statutes, that we would go forward to the to a judge to get ultimate approval of the settlement agreement. So that's where we're at this point. I'm waiting to get the draft settlement agreement from Attorney Green. When I do receive that within a reasonable period of time, I'm certainly going to make it a priority to put it at the top of my list. I'll review it with city staff and leadership from the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Common Council, and we'll make whatever revisions are necessary, if any. We'll finalize that agreement. And again, the required legal process would be we would take that agreement to the Zoning Board of Appeals. In a public meeting, we would announce what the settlement agreement is. it would get voted on in public. And then the second step would be to take the same settlement agreement in a public meeting, get it approved by the council. My assumption is they would probably put it on the consent calendar. The third step is required by state law. It's called an 8-8N hearing. We have to go before a judge and get the judge's blessing on the settlement of any zoning appeal. So that's the process. That's where we're at in the process. And the city continues to be ready, willing, and able to resolve the additional concerns of the neighbors. And we're appreciative of their time and efforts to make this, quite frankly, a better project for everybody. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that the commission may have as to where we stand in the process and what we've done so far with the neighbors.
I have a question. Do we have the authority to vote tonight with a pending appeal?
Yes. So there was an appeal of the Zoning Board of Appeals decision, which was to grant a variance, and essentially the requirements and the zoning requirements that needed to be varied in order to allow this project to go forward to you for a special permit approval have been granted by virtue of the variance approval that was provided by the Zoning Board of Appeals. So yes, you could proceed forward with approving this project. Now, if the applicant went forward with constructing the project while the appeal was pending, and if you know the appeal was somehow sustained, then obviously the applicant would be doing so at its own risk. But the bottom line is, yes, the zoning commission has the right to be able to approve it this evening, even though the ZBA decision is currently subject to a pending appeal.
Any other questions for Attorney Capola? All right, if not, we'll turn it back to Alan Lowe.
Yeah, just to respond to two things. One is that subject to the zoning commission review and recommendation approval, next step for us in terms of project is go up to the state for the state review the final drawings. That's exactly how the ZBA variance is set up, approved, and this commission is approving the same set of drawings. Then we forward to the state. They reviewed it and authorized us to go out to bid. And we're looking to go out to bid in February. So the bids will come back by the end of February, and then as long as we meet our budget requirements, then we will continue to move forward. So that's the schedule. The second, the question about class sizes. We were here, I guess, part of this agenda tonight. It's a special appropriation of South Norwalk School. I know there's a different location, but the Board of Education going through this process of building another school, consider building another school. And that changes the distribution of student within the whole district. So for Cranberry School, the size of the building is designed based on highest enrollment in the last and future, around 10 years from previously and upcoming. So we took the highest point of population and designed this school too. But we're anticipating because of building of the new South North School, the population of Cranberry will reduce in the future. So in terms of class sizes, the people that are concerned about it, it will be less than what it is now in the past, I would say 3 years, because that was our peak. I think last year was the peak, but COVID changes everything a little bit. So I think in terms of class size, it's not going to get any larger. And in fact, it probably gets smaller. So those are my comments I have.
Okay. Any final questions from commission members?
Just a quick one from me. Every once in a while, I make a mistake and turn on to Know a Lot on my way home when school is getting out. How do you anticipate that the parent drop-off loop is going to eliminate that mess on Know a Lot starting at 9:30 in the morning and ending at about 4?
Let me start with this. Start with a response. I think you probably have better experience than I do with Cranberry, but I think typically, as I understand all the school within the system, drop off usually go through faster, and the pickup is usually the one that backs up traffic more. The reason being is that parents get there early and wait. right? Drop off, just go through, and within 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is, it goes through flow, and then just get the whole thing get cleared out quickly. If Lisa, if you don't mind, can you go back to the drawing a little bit on the loop? I
Yes.
think if I don't know how much, if each school is a little different. If a school that, if you can see 20 cars in the street for discussion's sake, if there's a 20 car backup or waiting in the street, show the loop there. We are thinking this loop can accommodate at least 20 to 25 cars or something. Like that. I haven't really-
42
Yeah,
cars.
42, Alan. I
Oh,
think it was
42.
based on-
So if you have 20 cars, if you typically see 20 cars out there, the 20 cars will be in this loop. If you see how many cars, I'm sorry, it's 40?
42.
Wow. But then the so important of where the word parents is, usually the parents are not there anymore. You wish, are we starting from the entrance of the building? Oh, well, no, pickup, they would be there. I'm sorry.
Right,
Pickup
right.
people can go up further.
I think we stopped counting once you get past the entrance to the building.
Yeah,
because,
correct. More in that area.
Psychologically, you want to get on out of there after.
Okay, so I don't
Drop
want
off
to
or
prolong
pick
this
up.
conversation, but so bottom line, if we see 30 cars out there, one week, well, one day this week, the 30 cars will be inside this loop. Okay, so it is a substantial change.
Yes, thank you. That's about what I do see out there is about 25 cars, so.
I'm glad you
that
didn't tell me
holds
it's
42, it should be great.
Mhm. I will also say that the solar that we showed is on the roof of the building. It's just the layout was placed in the site in that same location, and that the solar is typically a low profile element. It's not something that we've been secretive about.
And Mr. Chairman, if you wouldn't mind, I just have one more selfish question to ask.
Sure, go ahead.
It's the high point of my dog's day when we go there on Saturday to walk through the park, through the woods, I should say, not the park. Is that sidewalk that kind of leads up to that and all of that, that's going to be the same? I probably said that wrong. There's a playground in front of the existing building now. And
Here.
No, it's not. Which one? You told
The
you know,
sidewalk.
from
This is the
Drummond Ave.
sidewalk.
that's,
Yeah, that's good.
oh yeah, okay, now I see it. Yeah, okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Right, and that's outside the limits of construction. We're not removing it, right, Kent? We're just
Yeah,
letting it.
it'll remain
I'll
to a
make
point.
sure to tell Otis, he'll be very happy.
I think we're gonna put a sign, there's no dogs allowed over there.
Any further questions before we close the hearing? All right, then we'll close the hearing and move on on the agenda. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. The next item is action on the public hearing we've just closed. Steve, you have some language. While you're accessing that, is there a motion, just so we can get it on the table, to either approve or disapprove this project?
I move to approve.
Okay, Mr. Rowena has moved to approve. Is there a second?
I second. Mike Mushak.
Okay, and Mike Mushak seconds. Now, let's put up the motion to approve. Discussion on the motion?
Even Lou, can we add the requirements that you've done for some of the commercial projects about the green and infrastructure and solar elements as a condition of approval?
I think that we can, but I thought there was something in there about it.
I don't think it's in the, I didn't see it in the condition of approval. It was mentioned in the comment above for them to specify, but.
Okay. Steve or Brian, can you put in some language that addresses that concern? There it goes.
Yeah, let's just be careful about what we're indicating, because I just want to make sure that,
Well, they were clear that it was not an absolute commitment. They need to have, it sounded as if they had to have their engineers indicate that it makes sense to do that. I know there was this discussion about electrical savings from having solar. But of course, that needs to be balanced with the cost of leasing the solar equipment.
yeah, okay, yeah, you keep going, Brian. Maybe
Writer's block.
as indicated by the applicant, or something like that.
And then on the same line, Steve, do we want to add the language we've been using in a lot of the commercial properties about maintenance and repairs, keeping things
It's like
up to
related
date?
to the building materials?
Yeah,
Yeah, I wish I remember what that exact language stated.
I'm trying to remember when we last used it. I want to
Like
say it was
for-
in the waypoint
Yeah, Pinnacle probably, or
Pinnacle or
Wall Street Place.
or Wall
10
Street Place.
Yeah, or 10 Monroe Street.
Yes, that's right.
Brian, you're much quicker than me. I don't know if you go to the city page, we probably have it there on one of the applications.
Let me try Pinnacle.
And while he's digging that out, is there anything else we can try to entertain you for a second?
It was a pleasure to listen to the comments of the neighbors, both those who had concerns and those who were supportive of the project. They were brief and to the point. I mean, having recently been through, 15 hours of public comment, this is a very different experience.
All right, I think I found it. I'll just paste it in here and then we can edit it from there.
Okay, you got one?
I think so. I think it's a little bit over the top for what we need. That might be a good starting point.
Okay.
So it's these two here. These are what we included as part of Pinnacle. It's probably a little bit more than what we would need for this scenario, but we can edit.
Yeah, I think the Pinnacle one was also related to, remember they had that kind of internal walkway that had the really fancy lighting and different things
Right.
that we were concerned weren't going to be able to be maintained. So that one probably doesn't need to be there, would be my guess.
8 seems more right. But feel free to edit away, obviously.
Yeah, 7 is, Nick, is 7 hitting what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yes.
We've been
Paragraph
running
7 should do it by itself.
And Brian, can you scroll up, either up or down, I've forgotten which, to the SEAC language?
Sure.
Okay. Okay,
We also include, this is
right.
a little redundant, but language about all the other approvals that were granted.
Okay, any further comments before we vote on this?
I'll make one comment, please. Mike
Sure, go
Mushak.
ahead.
I just want to say I thought they did a really good presentation. And I think the building is a stunning piece of architecture with all that glass and natural materials. And I'm going to be happy to support it.
All right, let's do this by a roll call. Steve or Brian? You vote yes, you're voting in favor of approval. You're voting no, you're voting against approval.
And I'm just going to grab you as I see you on my screen. Hopefully everybody stays put. Mr. Ferguson,
Yes.
thank you. Mr. Patches. Oh, I'm sorry. Nope. I'm sorry. Nope. Sorry, you're not seated. I apologize. Mr. Cantor,
Yes.
Ms. Byron,
Yes.
Ms. Wells,
Yes.
Ms. Langallis,
Yes.
Mr. Baxendale,
Yes.
Mr. Rowena,
Yes.
Mr. Mushak,
Yes.
and Mr. Schulman.
Yes.
That was unanimous.
All right. Moving on the agenda, referrals and special appropriation requests. I'm going to appoint Mr. Williams to these two referrals. The first is 2022-01, excuse me, an 824 referral, transportation, mobility, and parking, 3 easement acquisitions for traffic signal improvements. And our responsibility here is to determine if these acquisitions are consistent with the POCD. And I understand we don't have anyone here tonight from TMP. So it'll be either Mr. Kleppen or Mr. Baker.
Sure. So I'll do my best to get you through this one. So TMP is looking at acquiring essentially 3 easements in order to do some traffic signal upgrades. From what I understand, all work is reimbursable through a grant. So 2 of the easement acquisitions, I believe, are on West Avenue. And then the 3rd is on East Avenue. And I could pull up any site plans if you guys wanted to take a look to kind of see where they're located.
Is the area of East Avenue city-owned property or state-owned property?
I believe it is.
I believe it's state because I don't think we would need an easement for ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll pull up the map here. So here's the one on East Avenue. So it's the corner of, I believe it's East and
149, isn't it? Or
Can you rotate that?
yeah.
It's Eversley.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
I did throw draft language together for you guys.
Just a note, just on the kind of grand scheme of things for an 824, that's probably as simple a one as you'll see because there's really not, it's not like a new road or a new sidewalk or the city selling or buying property. It's really just locating utilities within that easement area.
Okay. Brian, can you shoot that up just a little bit? Thank you.
So here's just background, and then let me know if you want to go through that or if you want to scroll down to the draft resolution.
Yeah, why don't you go down to the resolution? All right, it's clear from the resolution that this is supported by the POCD.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
All right,
Mr.
Mr. Mushak.
I'd like to second it.
Mr. Mushak moves, Mr. Baxendale seconds.
I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, at this particular location, is there also a crosswalk being installed in synchronization with the light? I don't think there's a crosswalk there now.
They show, that's the east one, East Avenue one.
Mm-hmm.
They show a crosswalk. They do not indicate if it's proposed or existing.
That's a very good question, JJ. And usually these traffic signal upgrades, from what I know from over the years, they always had pedestrian improvements and signalized crosswalks involved with them, which is one reason why they were needed. Not always. I'm not saying it's happening here, but it's a very good question. We don't want to just favor cars here. We want to favor pedestrians too.
And my question also extends to the one on West Avenue as well.
So it looks like there is the crosswalk there at Eversley.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I'll pull up the.
And the one on West Avenue?
Let's see.
Aren't we just approving the easement?
Yes,
Right.
we are.
Yep.
Yeah, but I was also under the impression that it's traffic, it's the light control, it's the timing.
I think it's just the easement that we're talking about.
Okay, thank you.
But I could be wrong, I could be wrong. That's what
I could read the memo aloud. I'm sorry for interjecting.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So the city of Norwalk has received an FHWA grant administered by the state of Connecticut Department of Transportation to upgrade 5 traffic signals at various locations in Norwalk. As part of the design phase for this project, it was determined that there was no need to obtain 3 easements. There was a need to obtain 3 easements to be able to install some of the traffic signal control equipment. 2 of the easements needed are for West Avenue at Grace Baptist traffic signal replacement, while the 3rd easement is for East Avenue at Eversley. In accordance with the federal acquisition procedures for real property that applies to this project, an independent third-party appraisal was undertaken to determine the value of these easements. Would anyone prefer I go over the value, or are we?
Yeah, so it's just an easement. So we're just approving the easement.
That's right.
Thank you for the clarification.
I believe
Okay.
there are crosswalks there, Jackie just said.
Thank you again.
I think we can do this one by a show of hands, but just again want to remind Ms. Jordan Byron and Mr. Williams that you have to abstain on this one.
Darius is on this one.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. My apologies, Mr. Patches needs to abstain. Let's go with a show of hands. All those in favor?
As everybody said
Yeah,
yes.
looks to me like that's unanimous. The second is 2022-02 Special Appropriation, City of Norwalk Board of Education, Special Capital Appropriation for the new Norwalk Neighborhood School in South Norwalk. This one is a project of a little more moment, involving a good deal of money. Alan, are you going to represent the Board of Ed on this one? Alan, you are muted.
You're muted.
Linda, I'm sorry, Linda
Sure.
and Sandra is, and I'm going to be background support for them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I'm Lunda Asmani, the Chief Finance Officer for the Norwalk Public Schools. And with me is Ms. Sandra Feois, the Assistant Superintendent of Business Operations for the schools to speak to this item. So essentially what we're doing here is we had two prior projects that already been gone through the process and had been authorized and approved for funding. And then through discussions and through recent developments, we have determined that we could repurpose those funds for the new South Norwalk neighborhood school. So this, in effect, we're asking for a special appropriation in lieu of requesting new funding for the project. And so we are closing out the new Columbus school that was to be located at Ely. If you recall, the Columbus school, we have a new plan now where they're going to be co-located at Ponus. So we no longer need to construct that school. And the funding for that, we're asking it be repurposed for this school. And likewise, we had a project, the Norwalk Global Academy. And so we're requesting that these two projects be closed and the funding be appropriated for this new school. And so we have been going through the process. So far, the process started with our Board of Ed Facilities Committee that approved it. It went to the full Board of Ed. They voted on it and approved it. We then went to the Common Council Land Use Committee that reviewed it and we presented to them. They approved it. We went to the Common Council Board of Estimates and Taxation. They approved it. Tonight, we are coming to you for your approval. Tomorrow night, we will be going to the Common Council Finance Committee, and we hope for final approval next week, Tuesday, at the full Common Council. So that's kind of where we've been, but it is basically a special appropriation, reappropriating funds that had already been approved. We've had support from the city side, city finance, the mayor. We've had bond counsel look at this because it is a bonded project. Bond counsel has seen no issues with it and they've rendered their opinion on that. And we will be meeting with the finance committee tomorrow to speak to this. I do have with me the assistant superintendent on the call. Sandra, if there's anything I missed, you have obviously been more involved with this project than I have, and maybe you could shed some light or help me answer any questions from the members of the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Asmani. You've been very thorough, but I will gladly answer any questions or be of help if you have any.
Yeah, I think the members of the commission would like to know why in making this presentation, you haven't indicated the location that you're considering for the new building.
I'm actually going to turn that to Alan. Alan, do you want to explain a little bit about the location?
Oh, great. Give me the easy questions. The location, it's at this point, because we are going through, excuse me, real estate negotiations. The city has the ability under freedom of information to hold discussion on site location because it can impact negotiation as well as the property owners' situations. So that's why it's confidential at this point. It's very important that we maintain that kind of confidentiality because it's a very sensitive issue to acquire land in South Norwalk. I hope that the commission understand our position we put in. It's not an easy thing to do. It's very time consuming and we have to respect both sides' privacy in terms of discussion of acquiring property.
I think it's not difficult to understand why you can't provide that information.
Thank you very much.
Are there other questions?
I have a question. Is there an artist rendering of what the proposed school would look like?
No, we don't. I think it's a long process. This is really the first step. I think Board of Ed went through this process, identified that there's a need for a South Norwalk school, try to reduce busing all around town so that the South Norwalk community has a home, a neighborhood school. Is the conceptual strategy creating the South Norwalk School in South Norwalk. There's a number of things that we have not hired an architect. We haven't, but we had to conceptually do some ideas of a piece of property and size of the building. We're looking at this school would be accommodate up to a maximum of 682 students, which include 2 pre-K classroom. This will be grade from pre-K to 5. So it's 4 section. Section means that each grade has 4 classrooms. Sometimes we also create a couple more extra classrooms. For certain year, certain grade may have instead of 4 classrooms, 5 classrooms. So there's some flexibility in the structure of the new building. So we do not have what the building looks like at this point. And in fact, we are very, very beginning of discussion of what the building look like. We know, generally speaking, the square footage of the building based on the state requirements of 682 kids. There's a maximum number of square foot that we can build for that size of school. And beyond that, it's a long process. But we are required to, in order to get reimbursements from the state, we have to submit something by June 30th of this year. So that's why we are coming to go for the special appropriation process. At the same time, we are going for common councils for various approvals so that we can have a productive negotiation with the property owners. So it's a very multi-dimensional kind of project. Until we get approval from the state, we really don't hire an architect to do designing yet. So the project hasn't been funded yet. So that's one of the first steps we have to do.
Do you anticipate this handling all the students in the South Norwalk area that are pre-K through 5? Or do you expect some kids to still have to go be parceled out a little bit?
Sandra, if you don't mind, I can answer.
No, I don't mind. Oh, you're welcome to. I think at this point, either you or I can answer, but go ahead.
Generally speaking, again, the number is not exact, but we're looking at right now, it's about 811 kids that actually get bused to different part of town. The goal is to bring as many of them back as possible because the city, generally speaking, the population, minority populations in South Norwalk, it's over 75% minority students. So we don't have those requirements in terms of minimum requirement or maximum requirement, however you look at it. So the goal is to bring as many of the kids back as possible. This school is designed for 600 somewhat, but at the end of the day, for K to 5th grade, it's probably around 640 kids because the 32 kids, 36 kids, or 36 kids are actually pre-K. So what happened is that because Columbus is moving to Ponus, so I believe there may be 50 somewhat kids or more, no, 150 kids maybe in Columbus that's currently live in South Norwalk. So it's a number of them would be going, because we're moving Columbus to Ponus. Some of the South Norwalk kids actually were moving to Ponus. At the same time, because of the magnet school program, Silver Mine, so some of the kids that go there now is Spanish as second language. I think that's what the program is. Will continue to go there. So some of these kids will not be that currently from South Norwalk goes Silver Mine will still be doing that. And I think there's one more element that potentially I think we're looking at Woolpit as a arts magnet school, right? Perform art. No, I'm not sure performing. It's arts magnet school. So potentially some of the South Norwalk kids will be going up there. So within those magnets programs, or I guess it's not really magnets. Really, it's choice programs. I think that offer the South Norwalk kids more options to go different part of the city. So when we talk about potential 800 somewhat kids, some of these kids are going to these different programs. So at 600 somewhat kids for South Norwalk school, actually does very well in terms of meeting student enrollment needs throughout the district.
Say, excuse me, those are really issues, aren't they, for the Board of Ed? What exactly are we approving here? Are we approving reallocation of funds that were already approved for the?
Yes.
So we're just approving the reallocation of funds. It's really our issue to be talking, worrying about how many kids, where are they going to go, who are they, et cetera. Those are really Board of Ed issues, aren't they?
Yes,
Well,
I would agree with you. I think it's just probably an interesting topic, but you're correct. We're just, it's the ask is to actually do the reallocation of the money.
I'm actually happy.
But we are happy to share. I mean, it's like If you have any topics of interest to the school, I mean, we're here to answer those questions.
We're not
I'm
here to
happy that-
ask them this evening.
I'm happy we're having this discussion.
That's what I'm getting to, is we need to do what is in our purview, and
I'm
happy
sorry,
we're having
Steve,
this
you
discussion.
had something you wanted to say.
Yes, I'm happy we're having this discussion because I was part of the Educational Specification Committee about 5 years ago. And I'm happy to see the reallocation and the pointed thought and the confidentiality to some degree about how this project is going to go underway. So I'm curious and excited to see how this is unfolding for the old District 99 kids, the kids that were sent to the various schools around Norwalk, and to have kids have a shorter commuter time. You know, you mentioned South Norwalk Neighborhood School. I love the thought, not the name. The fact that kids should be able to go, especially elementary kids, 15 minutes, 20 minutes top to their school with traffic is better than being shipped around the whole town for about 45 minutes to 60 minutes. So I'm looking forward to see this develop. So thank you, Linda and Sandra, and thanks to everyone else, the different committees involved. And I'm going to have my ears to this one.
okay.
We have a motion on this.
I move to approve.
Okay, Galen has moved it. Is there a second?
I'll second. Okay,
Okay,
go
there are
ahead,
a
Nick.
number of seconds. I think Nick might have been first. So Nick seconds. Any further discussion before we move to a vote? Okay, again, thank you. All right, can you move that down so we can finish reading it?
That's everything. It's a
Oh,
short
okay.
one.
Okay. Any questions about the motion as it's written? If not, this is a lot of money. I think if I remember correctly, the amount was $76 million.
72 million.
Oh, pardon me. Thank you for the correction.
I'm sorry, I don't want to make it a lot. I just want to make it very clear that when we when we deleted the other two projects, the balance available right now is $76 million. So we had this some initial estimating, it's about $72 million, but land acquisitions and other things that sidewalk for neighborhood and access for kids, safe path to school and stuff like that. So that potentially, if we do come back, we may come back. But at the same time, at this point, we're looking at $72 million.
Okay. Thank you, Alan. Let's do this as a roll call. Steve?
Sure. Mr. Ferguson,
Yes.
Mr. Mishak,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Cantor,
Yes.
Miss Wells,
Yes.
Miss Langallis,
Yes.
Mr. Baxendale,
Yes.
Mr. Rowena,
I don't know what I'm voting on, so I'm going to abstain. I don't understand the process yet.
okay, and Mr. Schulman.
Yes. All right, so there's one abstention, the motion passes. And we're going to move on the agenda to 2022-03 SPR 45 High LLC 45 High Street, construction of two dwelling units, two dwelling unit additions to existing multifamily residence. Again, on this one, Mr. Patches will be voting. And who's going to be making the presentation for this?
That'd be you, Lyle.
I can do it if you want. It's a Lyle Fischel, architect, Fischel Architecture, 36 Gibson Avenue, Stamford, Connecticut. I've been working with Nick Bona on development of this site. This is for 2 units, which are, I can share the screen, I think I can. Let's see if I've got, well, that's not it. I don't have my drawing open, but it's.
And for the site plan or the architecturals, Lyle?
But the architectural might be good to see, and then we could show the site plan. You have those, you can open those up, Brian?
Sure.
Okay. So we've been developing this site, and Mr. Bona has been adding units to existing structures, and this is a unit, 2-bedroom a piece unit, townhouse situation. Well, not quite a townhouse. There's a unit on the first floor, a unit on the second floor. This will complete his development at this site, 45, 47. We get a little mixed up with the numbers because the one lot holds 43 through 47. And that's been a source of confusion. This has already been approved by redevelopment. It's been approved by DPW. It's been basically approved by everyone that needs to approve it. Here's the site plan. If you're looking at those 2 units there, we've already basically built out the other 2 units on a prior approval on this site. It really holds to the character of the site. It's still got a lot of open space. We meet all the recreational area requirements. We meet all the parking requirements. This should be a very simple, yes, we approve situation. That's really about it. It's not a very big project. It's just 2 units.
Questions for Mr. Fischel?
I have one comment, Mike Mushak. I just want to note for the record that part of the redevelopment agency approval was an architectural review. And I never know if I say it right. It's Andropolis architects, and they had no issue with it. I read their report, which was in our packet. So I think if it's gone through multiple levels of review with no issue, then I have no problem voting yes as soon as possible.
Mike, architecturally, this entire development has exactly the same look through, start to finish. So I think, frankly, once it's built, you'll hardly recognize that it wasn't there in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other comments or questions for Mr. Fischel?
Yeah, good work, Mr. Fischel. Nice seeing you again.
Steve, good to see you again, too.
Okay, is there a motion to approve?
I make the motion, Mike Mushak.
Okay, a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, Mr. Baxendale seconds. Thank you. Just one more quick question for Mr. Fischel. Do you already have all the CX sign-offs?
I had some fries, so yeah, I had some little leftovers just.
As far as I know, we do, and Brian can back that up. I know I've been working with Brian on this project for way too long. Brian, we do have everybody behind us on this one, right?
As far as I know, we have DPW, WPCA, TMP had no comment on it. So I believe everyone who's required to has essentially signed off at this point.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion to approve and a second. Any further comments before we move to a vote? Hearing none, seeing none. We can do this with a hand raise. All those in favor?
And Miss Byron, I'm sorry, Miss Byron, you're not voting on this one, sorry.
Right. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I'm abstaining.
Okay, okay, the motion is approved. Thank you, Mr. Fischel.
Thank you.
It is just 8 o'clock. We have one more significant item. I would suggest we did this at the last meeting, that maybe we take a 10-minute break and come back together at 8:10 and move our business forward. If you prefer to go straight through without a break, that's all right. What's the feeling of the members?
10-minute break.
10-minute.
Could use a break.
Okay. We'll get back together at 8:11. It's now 8:01. Let's move on to our final action item. 2022-05R/M/SP Merit Station Norwalk LLC 67, 69, 79, 87, 111, 117, 129, 135, 155, 156, and 201 Glover Avenue and 2 Oakwood Avenue. Zone map amendment and to change zones from AAA residence and business number 2 to executive office. Zoning regulation text amendment to create a definition for executive office development park and to permit the new use in the executive office zone by special permit in conjunction with the special permit application for an executive office development park containing 1,303 dwelling units and approximately 28,000 square feet of retail within 7 buildings ranging from 5 to 15 stories. Although this says preliminary review, it's preliminary to us as a new commission. But the zoning commission has been working with BLT on this for well over a year now. While I can't speak for Attorney Waters, my guess is that BLT would like to see this start to move forward. So with that, I'll turn it over to Attorney Waters, who is the attorney for BLT. Let's start the discussion all over again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, David Waters, I'm General Counsel to Building and Land Technology and representing the applicants here this evening. Your summary was quite appropriate on a number of bases. One is that we actually filed our applications almost a year and 3 quarters ago. And we've been working with the Zoning Commission on that fairly consistently throughout the last couple of years. And we also, some of you actually were on the Planning Commission when there was an initial referral that was made, and that was about a year and a half ago. So it's been quite a while, but some of you have some familiarity with it, and others, this is probably fairly new. The 3 applications, if I may share my screen. I can find the right one. No, wrong one, sorry. hang on. Let's try again. It's not the text amendment, it's this one, I think. If I may, hang on just a second. This is not the one I wanted. Try this. Apologies for this. Somehow it's disappeared from. The Can you all see that now?
Still seeing the Word doc that you had up prior. You might have to
You're still
stop
seeing-
share and then reshare.
Okay. Sorry about that. All right, let's try again. How about there?
There you go.
Okay.
Looks like it.
So thank you. This is an aerial photo of, and what you see in yellow is the area that is the subject of this application. As was indicated by the chairman initially, there are actually 3 applications. The first one is for some zone changes for portions of the property. Some of the property is currently zoned executive office zone. Some of it is currently zoned AAA residence, and some of it is business number 2. The second of the, and the application is to make it all executive office zone within this dashed yellow area. The second is to a series of text amendments that would allow for approval of a master plan. Norwalk does not have that concept in its zoning regulations, but a master plan would allow for an overall review of an entire area as opposed to a piece by piece application for individual buildings. The benefits are that everybody knows in general what is then going to occur in that area, subject to the fine tuning with architectural plans and what have you. And the third is to implement the text amendment by actually approving a master plan for this area by special permit. What does that do? Well, it allows us to then have a master plan similar to what was done informally for Merit 7, which would be developed over a period of years, probably about 10 years in this case. But it would still require that each of the individual buildings come back before the commission for site plan review to confirm that, in fact, the buildings are consistent with the master plan that has been approved.
David, can I interrupt you just a
Sure,
second?
of course. Mhm.
The difference between having to come back to us for site plan review as opposed to a special permit is that a special permit will require a public hearing. If we allow it just to come back for site plan review, there is no requirement for public hearing. And as a result, there'll be less formal public input.
Actually, that's, Mr. Chairman, I would suggest otherwise, that a special permit, you must have a public hearing. A site plan application, you have the option to have a public hearing.
That's correct. I stand corrected on that.
And I would presume that given the scale of these buildings, that it is likely that you would determine at that time that a public hearing should be held for each of the buildings as they come in. The real difference is that a number of the standards that would be required for special permits are no longer required for site plan review, because you've already determined that the use itself is appropriate within the zone, and it's really just now a question of the 6 standards that are under site plan review, dealing with traffic, utilities, landscaping, drainage, that are really the things that you would be addressing at that point, and making sure that it was consistent with the master plan that's been approved. So this shows you the area, and it shows specifically the zone changes. So what's in the lighter green is all AAA residence zone, and it's the area that is mostly the right-of-way for the Route 7 Expressway, as well as down at the south where the Merritt Parkway is. There's an area of it that is the darker green that is part of our property and part of that dashed yellow area that would be modified and changed from AAA residence to executive office. Similarly, there's this area that is in pink, which is currently business number 2, that would become executive office as well. The rest of the executive office zone is this kind of orange color. And what you see in blue here currently is all executive office zone, and it is the only area of executive office zone in the city of Norwalk. What it includes is the towers that are down at the southern end of the property, 1 Glover Avenue, which is an apartment complex, 20 and 10 Glover Avenue, which are offices, 399 Main Avenue, the Merritt 7 complex, and what has now been developed as 3 buildings of the Curb on the east side of Glover Avenue. Past that, I think. This again shows you in outline form what the area is. It shows you some of what the old development has been. It was mostly either manufacturing or some very small offices. DOT actually owned a portion of the property up here and used it as a staging area. It was also parking areas that were used when US Surgical, which became Covidian, had its headquarters located here. There was parking that was used and associated with it in that location. The thing that we have proposed is to, as has been indicated, is to create a master plan that would have a total of 7 buildings that would be located where that dashed yellow line was. Of that, this is the location right here of the new train station that is under construction right now by the state of Connecticut. The old train station is down about here on the property, but the new train station will actually have a pedestrian overpass over the train tracks, which has always been a problem because Merritt 7 you could throw a rock to get to the platform, but you couldn't get to the platform unless you walked around about a mile. So this will now allow for a connection with between Merritt 7 and the Glover Avenue area. And that becomes really important, and it becomes a focal area. So we're creating a town square in this area here. The buildings are mostly residential, where you see the areas that are cross-hatched or hatched in red are areas where there would be retail at the ground floor. So around the square and at this building, as you'll see in a minute, this building has been modified as well from the original proposal based upon the work we've done with the commission and with its consultants, so that there is an additional retail component here, and these buildings are actually brought forward. The important thing here is that this becomes part of a transit-oriented development, something that obviously the commission has been interested in. It's also recognized in the Plan of Conservation and Development. And indeed, this entire area that we're talking about has been recognized as an area for potential future development as a transit-oriented development district. Some other notable features are there's what's been designated as Raccoon Brook that is in this area, and this becomes a nice focal area for open space as well. The Norwalk River Valley Trail actually runs from Wilton down in this area. It will eventually run the area that currently is almost developed down to this corner here, but it will eventually run down on the west side of the Route 7 Expressway down to meet the remainder of the trail at Broad Street in Norwalk. There is also a spur. When this development, the curb, was developed, it was agreed that we would put in a spur from the trail down along our property, and then it would connect underneath the Grist Mill Bridge so that people would be able to get down into this area. Initially, it was contemplated that the trail would actually go down Glover Avenue, but because the DOT would not allow it to go through the train tunnel under the Merritt Parkway, they diverted it over to the other side. But it becomes now a spur that will then allow people to take the trail, and if they wish, to then get across or to take to Merritt 7 or to take the train from here. We've also proposed, as part of the development of all of this, to add another portion of pedestrian walking trail that would go up along Raccoon Brook and through the state property to the top of Oakwood Avenue, so that it becomes a more walkable area. In addition to the fact that you've got the train tracks which break up this and the Norwalk River right beside it, the topography along here is rather steep as well. So what we're trying to do is to unify not just our properties that are here, but the entire neighborhood, which includes the condominiums. That there's about 5 or 6 different condominium complexes that are in this area, as well as some offices. Assuming that we can get property rights to do so, we've also contemplated and designed this such that there can be an additional walking path through this area as well, which again creates a better and more free-flowing area. I'm going to go back, if I may, to the initial picture, because this actually talks about the whole rationale for this. Although we're talking about this master plan being this particular area, in fact, the area that we're talking about is this entire area that includes Merritt 7 and the towers, and includes the condominiums behind, and it includes the curb. It's rather significantly bounded by Grist Mill Road, by the expressway, by the Merritt Parkway, and by Main Avenue. And so it becomes a very defined district in and of itself. There are traffic issues, and this is one of the things that we've been working with the commission on for these many months, because it was never initially contemplated that the Route 7 Expressway would end at Glover Avenue, or at Grist Mill rather, but it does. And so now the question is how to enhance that and to eliminate some of the impedances that currently exist, as well as to address any future traffic that would occur. One of those improvements that is being proposed is down at the Merritt Parkway and the Route 7 interchange, and also the Main Avenue interchange. And that is actually on the books with DOT and is contemplated to commence construction in about 2025. The other thing that we've been working with DOT on is improvements that would change this from 2 3-way T intersections, one at Glover, one at the Expressway with Grist Mill, and instead make it into 1 4-way intersection so that it would, in essence, curve down this way, with Glover coming up in one direction and Belden coming down in the other, or Grist Mill coming down in the other, to create 1 traffic light rather than 2, and then potentially enhancements north on Route 7 to also alleviate some of the traffic flow. So in order to do that, we have, and in looking at what the improvements would need to be, we were able to work with our traffic consultant and have submitted various documents to you that would show that the first phase of this, which is these 3 buildings, this building here, this building here, and this building here, could be built currently without the need for any additional improvements. It's literally 2 seconds or 5 seconds or 2 additional car lengths that we're talking about at the significant intersections, which is absolutely minuscule in comparison to the total volume of traffic that is going through the intersections in this area. So this piece of it could be built currently without the need for additional improvements. And we've been in front of DOT on an informal basis, and they are aware of that and are evaluating it. And we have every belief that they will find this to be an acceptable thing for an administrative approval. We've discussed with the commission and staff the concept that this building, this pair of buildings, and this pair of buildings would become a phase 2 and a phase 3, and that they would require potentially the additional improvements to be made both at the southern end of the property at the intersections of the Merritt Parkway and Route 7, and at the northern end, in order to be able to undertake the traffic that would be generated by the additional uses. Back up. Seen in kind of a bulk massing plan, what you again see is here's the train station with the town square. There are 2 buildings that are at about 5 stories each. This is 11 stories in this location. There is retail at the base of this building. There is retail at the base of this building. And then moving to this building, there is retail at the base. But this building also has an additional feature, and that is that the state of Connecticut wanted commuter parking. And we granted them an easement to allow for commuter parking within this area. What we did was we agreed with them that it could be on grade, which they've actually started to develop that lot at this point, but that we have the right to relocate it into a building. So in this case, the lowest floor, which is subterranean in this building, will be dedicated to commuter parking for the benefit of the train station. This building, this set of buildings here is all residential with some retail at the base of it. And this again is a retail building, or is a residential building as well. These are 15 stories. These are 14. This goes down to 11. In doing this, what we looked at specifically was being able to make buildings taller but narrower so that they had less of a visual impact on things. And we've been able to show you in plan form what that looked like, and that's part of the submission that we've made. In addition to you can again see the NRVT and how that works and the ability to get around into the neighborhood. In addition to all of that, what we've proposed, and you can see it here on these plans is that there are streetscape improvements that will be made as well. If you drive up to Glover Avenue right now, you'll see that these intersections where the entrances are to the parking garage portions of the curb buildings, there's brick intersections with crosswalks in these locations. That will be carried throughout Glover Avenue all the way down to the other end of the project. In addition to that, there's granite curbing, there is wide sidewalks, there are planted islands that are within this area of Glover Avenue, and to the extent that there's a width that allows for it, those same things will be incorporated as we proceed south. There are two different types of streetlights. The typical Cobra heads, which are put in on streets, but in addition to that, there's decorative lighting, and it again is already in place here, and that will be in place and continued through the development as well. The rationale behind the height is that this is 150 feet at 15 stories. And that's what's already allowed in the executive office zone. If you were to develop the property with a hotel, you would be entitled to 150 feet. So we have not gone beyond the envelope that the commission has already imposed. We've just added to it as we go further down, and it's for the residential uses as well. The part of what we've done is we have added and discussed with the commission design standards that will be incorporated within this, so that not only would the master plan that would be a matter of record and be recorded just as you do your special permits, not only would it show the uses, the bulk and the intensity of use that we're talking about, which you see here, but in addition to that, there are design standards that are developed, which we will be working with the staff to confirm meet all of the requirements that you're looking for, so that there's no surprise to anybody when we actually come in then with an individual site plan application for each of the buildings that you see as depicted. There are a lot of additional information is on file that I'll just point out for those that either have forgotten because it's been so long or because are new to the commission. We did submit as part of our application an analysis of the plan of conservation and development and those provisions of it that are relevant to this application, and that was prepared by Fitzgerald and Halliday. We have submitted an economic analysis with several updates by Goman and York. This is something that often is requested by commissions, or there are suspicions that are raised by neighbors as to, is this economically a good thing for Norwalk, or is this not a good thing for Norwalk? And the answer, I think, is an emphatic, this is a good thing. And I'll get to the touch base on that in just a minute. We've submitted a traffic analysis, not only of existing conditions, but as I said, and a further analysis that shows that these buildings here, these three buildings here, can be built without any impact or without any noticeable impact on the existing traffic. We've submitted a drainage report based upon this plan that has been performed to show that the drainage can be handled acceptably. We've submitted a sanitary sewer analysis, which again shows that with the addition of this development, the sanitary system will continue to operate efficiently. We have submitted a set of perspectives so that you can see what would you actually see with a 15-story building in these various locations. Our proposals have been forwarded to the commission's consultants, DeCarlo and Dahl. They had some comments that they wish to to make as far as the design was concerned. And as I said, that resulted in this building being modified, among other things. They also had some discussions and reviewed the traffic and confirmed that the analysis of the existing traffic was in fact accurate. And so that is all a matter of record as well. So why are we doing this, and what is the benefit to Norwalk? It obviously it is a benefit to us, and we would like to build this project. We think that it's an important project. We think that there is Norwalk is underserved in this type of development. That being said, all of these are designed as plug and play. So if we had a corporate headquarters that a corporation that wanted to have their corporate headquarters at the top of the expressway, this can easily be converted from a plan that shows 2 residential buildings into a commercial building, or a hotel, or various other options that are of some mix of everything. So there's some flexibility that is built into this, but we believe that this is the appropriate designation, at least initially, and it does include the retail. That the retail is of not a destination retail, but is going to be neighborhood retail. It's not something that people are going to come in off of Main Avenue to get to, but it's going to be your coffee shop, your dry cleaner, your potentially a bank branch. The types of things that serve the community that is this microcosm here, including the Merit 7 complex as well. But why is it important to Norwalk? Because the golden goose that we have is Merit 7 and the towers. They are the preeminent buildings of office, AAA offices in Norwalk. And frankly, they are probably 4 or 5 out of the top 10 taxpayers in the city of Norwalk right now. But what we know from our tenants is that they are having a very difficult time hiring employees. Mostly their employees are young. They're coming out of college. They're looking for an environment to work in that is not just driving into the office, staying at the office, leaving the office at night and going back to someplace else. They want to have an area that is live, work, play. They want an area that they can actually congregate in as well. And these corporations it's very difficult for us to retain them without having that. It's something that without it, not only are we not able to attract new corporations into the area, but it's very difficult to retain the ones that we have. So we believe that this is important for the long-term economic stability of Norwalk, as well as for the benefit of this entire area as well. So again, to kind of conclude where, I know that this has kind of been a quick overview, but to just kind of conclude where we are, there are 3 applications. The first one is those zone changes of some of the property that was AAA residence and business number 2 into all being executive office zone. The second is a text amendment that would allow within the executive office zone for the approval of an executive office development park, and then laying out the requirements for that. And the third is the special permit that is for the development park as you see it before you. And again, a reminder that each of these buildings, this is not the last bite at the apple, that each of these buildings, nothing can be built until we come back with a further application for site plan review for each of those buildings as well. So at this point, I think that I will conclude. I'm happy to answer questions, but I do know that we are anxious as we get to close to the 2nd anniversary of our initial application. We'd love to be able to get this thing to a public hearing. And we think that we've been able to answer or at least address many of the questions and comments that have been raised. and are happy to continue to do that.
Questions?
Darius has his hand raised.
Sorry.
Yes, I have one question. Do you, what would you say about the topographical difference between building 1.1 and building 3.2?
The height, where's the topography? It goes up probably, I don't think it's on the survey, but it's about a difference of 40 feet, 50 feet, something like that. It's relatively
In
flat.
elevation.
Yes, it's relatively flat along here. Once you get to the curve, it rises fairly steadily at that point.
Attorney Waters, will there be any public parking for other folks in the Norwalk community to take advantage of the new park that's going to be created here?
Yes, there will. There's a couple of things. One of them is that in the base of this building, not only is there the parking for the train station, but in addition to that, there is parking that will be available because we do have retail. And while we expect that it is neighborhood retail, we do believe that there will be some that will meet friends for a cup of coffee or what have you. In addition to that, if you go up here to the northern end where the curb has been developed, you'll see that there is on-street parking that has been developed as well. There's parallel parking all along the street now in front of these three buildings. So that will continue to exist and will be developed as we move down as well. And that's true on this side as well. Obviously, there will not be parking on this side. And as your consultant had indicated, part of the challenge to this is that it's a long, narrow spine, but on one side of it, there's really no active use because of the train tracks in the river. So a lot of the parking will occur on this side of the street, but yes, there will be public parking.
Steve's got his hand raised.
Thanks. I drove by this afternoon. There's one lane for bypassers to drive. I saw a food place on the right-hand side, close to where your arrow is now. Would that be like a miniature grocery store of some sort, or was that just my eyes deceived me? It was some kind of greenish kind of storefront.
Not sure what it is. I mean, there's no active use in that area right now. We did have a temporary pop-up where we had a food truck area, and over one summer we had a mobile bar, but there's nothing in this particular location right now. It may have been that what you saw was there's some activity because we've allowed DOT to use our property while they've been developing the train station. So it may have something to do with that.
Well, maybe it's me. It's a little further up than I guess. It was on the right-hand side. It's all right. I wasn't. Yeah. Probably just missed it. It looked like a food place. I was saying it's a good idea to have food there for the local residents.
Yes, and that is actually when we talk about the retail that we're talking about. I mean, this area right here with the square right across from the train station is a perfect location for some outdoor tables, and so a coffee shop or a pizza place or something of the sort like that, and the same thing is true along here as well. We expect that will actually be a fairly useful thing for the people that are in the neighborhood as a gathering place and a place to have a bite to eat.
JJ, you have a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. I actually work in this area, and so I'm in this area every day. I do have a question that piggybacks off of access for the public. I work right on Main Avenue, and just as the turnoff from the Merritt Parkway, it's very difficult for pedestrians to access Glover Street. Yes. You mentioned that you're upgrading the train station. Will there be better access for pedestrians from the train station onto Main Avenue? And for those pedestrians off of Main Avenue, the residents, if they want to utilize some of the new retail spaces along Glover Avenue, will there be walkable pedestrian ways for them to access it without having to drive?
Yes, there's a couple of different things that I'd love to tell you about on that. One of them is, first of all, the train station is actually a game changer in our mind as far as, again, pedestrian access, because it will now allow people that are in this entire area of Glover Avenue to come across to the plaza deck at Merit 7, so that then they can come across. And then we know that there are some issues with taking your life in your hands at some of the stoplights on Main Avenue to get across. But I think that again, one of the things that, and we've had this discussion actually with the commission already, is that having this as a concept that is coming through means that now there's more impetus on government to actually do something about some of the things that have not existed that should have existed before. One of the things in particular, we did a walk with the mayor on the who had done one of his walking tours in Norwalk, and talk about taking your life in your hand. The area on at Grist Mill, there is no sidewalk on Grist Mill Road at all. And one of the things that we've been pushing for is to enhance that there should be an ability for people to walk in this area and not have to worry about the fact that literally cars are a couple of feet away from them. But we also, this entire area along Glover itself is going to be completely changed by, some of it is because as part of the train station improvements, they're putting in new sidewalks. Some of it will be on the other side, will be part of this development that will be putting in new sidewalks. But if you look up at what has already occurred up at the curb on this side, you can see, you get a much better idea as to how that entire street is going to look when it's all been developed. And I actually had a thought, the thing that maybe when we were talking about retail, there is right here, Go Green Dry Cleaners is located right here. So maybe if that may have been something that somebody noticed as being already in existence, because we do actually, we started with the concept of neighborhood improvements that and retail that would be of an enhancement to the community, the local community right there.
Dave, what is the status of the design manual?
We are just about done with it, Mr. Schulman. We've actually been working hard on trying to depict what exactly. The interesting thing is that the design manual, in some respects, as it relates to streetscape, we have all the information and pictures that we need because it exists, and we're just going to affirm that what happens at the lower end of Glover is exactly what happens at the upper end of Glover. Similarly, we've been working on getting pictures of some of the buildings and architectural features of the curb, because that will then translate to what happens along Glover itself. And we've been working on, with Spiegels, who is our architect and space planner of record. We've already submitted some pictures of what concepts we have for the square itself. So we're just at this point compiling it. I expect that we will be able to submit that, and also signage. We've looked at signage that has actually been part of Norwalk's signage that you would recognize immediately, like "Welcome to South Norwalk" and things like that. So we've been putting that together, and we expect that we'll be able to have that design manual to your staff next week.
And Steve, once you have it, can you send it out to us for review?
Yes, certainly we can do that. We should probably talk about, some, next steps in terms of timelines, assuming that we get the manual next week. I think we'll probably have some comments on the staff level in terms of what's included, or should there be other items included as well, or what the actual design concept is and whether we feel that's appropriate or not. And also, at some juncture, I would recommend wrapping Bob Griswold's back into the conversation to get his input on that. And the only other thing I would point out is, as part of this, you're approving a change to the zoning map, you're approving a change to the zoning text, and the special permit itself is this kind of master plan concept that's up on the screen now. So you do have the ability to indicate that you'd like certain items to change if you don't, in terms of building placement, building location, how things are allocated. So you do have the ability to affect change in that way. So just keep that in mind. I know we sent out the link a couple of days ago. There's a lot of information in there, so it might make sense to digest it a little bit more and have another discussion about it too before the actual public hearings. I would just throw that out there for your consideration.
Tammy, I think I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
Oh, no need to apologize. Thank you. Attorney Waters, a couple of questions and thoughts on.
Yes.
I applaud that this development wants to have some public open space. I think when all is said and done, this is going to be a very tightly packed area. All those condominiums that have been there since the late 70s, early 80s, they really don't offer any open space to their residents. And I'm concerned that, the state says they want to work with you on the Grist Mill Road intersection. I'm not sure I understand how they're going to take 4 lanes of Route 7 and merge that into the end of Grist Mill Road and then get everybody off that ramp and onto Route 7. But I'll leave that to the experts. At the other end of Glover Avenue, coming out down by, I believe the building is called One Glover. I went through there today, and I've been through there a number of other times going in both directions. There were 2 women trying to navigate the intersection that even in a car, it's kind of hard to pull out when you're coming out by the Merritt Parkway on-ramp. So I hope that the engineers can work with you. Having all these additional cars, whether they're people that are living there or for office space, I think is going to really be, it's going to have an impact. And I'm wondering if from any of your work down in the South End in Stamford, what sort of data do you have on the retail space in the bottom of these buildings? Because when I drove by, to me, it looked like that dry cleaner is closed and it doesn't look like there's any other retail in the curb. And if you drive on West Avenue in Norwalk, really the street activation is not, I don't think, what people are hoping for. And that's pre-pandemic, not during the pandemic. So those are some of the, I don't know if I can have answers to those questions, but I think they're concerns that I have.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. A couple of things. One of them is that certainly the south end of Glover, that intersection where it comes out to Main Avenue, and it's where the intersection is where the entrance ramp is to the Merritt and what have you. That's actually part of the intersection project that the state has targeted to start work on in 2025. And it will include replacing the bridge that the Merritt Parkway has over Main Avenue, and it will include significant enhancements to that area. In fact, one of the things that will happen is that Glover Avenue will become much wider at that location because it will eliminate the potential for backing up over the train tracks that are on grade. So it's actually an important change that is contemplated and will be made by the city, or not by the city, by the state, as part of that overall development. And that actually will also enhance, as you noted, the pedestrian experience on Main Avenue in that location, trying to get across the entrance ramps to the Merritt Parkway and what have you, is just not a very good one right now either. So that's all part of that 2025 development that the state is targeting. The Go Green is actually has I can say, knowing from experience, they've had some issues because of the pandemic. The people aren't getting dry clean clothes anymore because most of the time they've been at home. But we do know that they are in fact still very much committed, and in fact Go Green is also in our project down here in the south end of Stamford as well. Yes, we do have a great deal of information about retail and what works and what doesn't work, just from the experience that we've had down here in the south end of Stamford. It is something that you have to choose carefully because it is not something, this is not going to be destination shopping. It's not, let's go to the Walmart that is on Glover Avenue. It's going to, the types of patrons that you'll have for this type of retail are going to be the people that are either living in the area or that are working either at Merit 7 or the Towers, maybe popping out for lunch, maybe stopping at someplace after work, things like that. So you have to be very careful about the type of retail that is contemplated, because otherwise it just won't work. And it does need a critical mass that without sufficient patronage, retail just doesn't survive. So yes, we do have a great deal of information, and we can certainly make that available too. I've made a note on that.
Thank you. Steve Kleppen, do we have the ability to see the state plans for the Glover Avenue interchange at the south end? And then I don't know, at the north end too, Attorney Waters, that was a very interesting thing that you mentioned before.
Yeah, we have I believe we have the interchange plans for the Merritt Parkway, the proposals. I don't think it's been quite finalized yet because there's extensive environmental reviews that the state has to go through as part of this, but I believe there's a preferred alternative and then some other ones under consideration, but we can get through those. For the north end, nothing, I don't think there's a project yet. I think the state has some ideas on what they would like to see and what would like to happen there, but there's not an official plan to roll out or get public comment on yet.
The problem with the state plans, in part, is that the state is in the process of receiving a huge infusion of funds for transportation projects, including replacement of a lot of or repair to a lot of bridges, a continued widening of I-95 and other projects. And it may well be that by the time they get around to these projects, which are important to BLT and important to Norwalk, that money is gone. And that's always been one of my concerns.
I can tell you, Mr. Schulman, that we have been working not only with the city of Norwalk, but also with the town of Wilton and with Mark Boughton, who is now the person that the governor has designated as the person to be trying to figure out how to spend all this money. And also with we've reached out through Mayor Rilling and First Selectwoman Vanderslice to Westcog as well. And we believe that they see this as being very much on their radar, as being an important project because of the fact that it's not just obviously for our project, but it's important because of the fact that it is necessary in order to be able to get people back and forth and to really stimulate development along Route 7 as well. And to correct the problems that have existed for these many years since the expressway ended kind of abruptly where it was never intended to end.
Michael?
May I speak?
Sure, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Waters, for your presentation. I do recall a question I asked at the Planning Commission was it a year and a half ago or 2 years? I'm not sure when, but you may recall the question, but I'm going to ask it again. But before I ask it, I want to just actually make a comment in that I read the Goldman and York fiscal impact analysis carefully, and I was kind of blown away by it. It was good to see that done. We had been requesting this type of thing from applicants for many years.
Yeah.
It was good to see it spelled out. I would highly recommend to the rest of the commission to read that, and to members of the public as well. So the question is, the thing I fear probably more than anything with the parking for the train station here is the attraction of Wilton residents who are going to be one stop closer to New York and have a much nicer train station than that little shack that they have in Wilton, and that they'll be racing through this area to catch the train, because we all do that. So that's human nature. But suddenly this walkable, pedestrian-friendly area, bike-friendly area, it becomes a raceway to Wilton residents. And I have nothing against Wilton residents. But the question I asked you 2 years ago or whenever was, have you had a conversation with the DOT about differentiating Norwalk residents and Wilton residents in the parking garage for the train station as other towns do, so that we would favor Silvermine and Cranberry and other Norwalk residents to use this station, as opposed to drawing in more traffic and more residents from our neighboring town that have their own train station that they can use, because to me it would defeat the purpose in many ways.
No, understood, Commissioner. And I think that, first of all, the operation of the parking is going to be done by DOT. It's not that we are going to be operating it for them. So it would have to be something that we would get them to agree that that's how they would monitor it. And I don't know that they do that or don't do that. I know that, as you say, in certain towns, there are priorities, but I don't know if that's because it's DOT parking lots or whether it's the municipal parking lots. But we can certainly, we can certainly in our discussions with them have that as a topic of conversation. And I understand your point. I do think that this line in particular, this train line, what we would really like to see, and again would welcome the support to do, is to enhance the service that's on this line. Frankly, people that are driving from further north, if they were going to stop at this station, they might as well just go to South Norwalk, because you've got much more frequent service down there than you do at Glover anyway. But one of the things that we've been really trying to push, and we think that this development will help to push, is the concept potentially of having almost a light rail system that you would be able to have a train that would go just between South Norwalk and Wilton Center. So that people that were living in this area on Glover Avenue could go to Sono for dinner and not have to drive, or people that are living in Sono that are working at Merit 7 would be able to take a train to be able to do that. Right now, the train frequency isn't all that great. We're hoping that with the demand that this would create, that we would be able to further enhance the service. And that's one of the topics that we were also talking about with Lynn Vanderslice, to see if we could get their support to do that as well.
Attorney Work, I think that makes a ton of sense. I was just thinking, commuters are not going to, if this is a live, work, play environment, people are hopefully not commuting as much. So, the drawer here is what's really the train station drawer is probably going to be either underutilized, if not converted to something more realistic, which I think is more in line with what you were talking about, right? Like the first time I heard of the light rail thing being on the table, I think that makes a ton of sense, and it really, I think, exciting and enhances this potential here. Sorry, Mike, I think you were about to say something else.
No, I was just going to say that I think that it really does make sense, and it makes sense for like the entire area of
Totally.
Sono all the way up to Wilton Center. But you know,
Just look at the commuting numbers.
Yeah.
Right now, people going, like the Metro North numbers are so low relative to what they were, and the trends are not turning the other way anytime soon.
Agreed.
Yeah, and on that note, the South Norwalk station, up until the pandemic, had a waiting list and was full and had overflow issues because I live in the neighborhood of the train station. So we had a lot of people parking on our street and then, walking the 8 minutes to the train station. But now, everything is up in the air in terms of those numbers. The parking garage at South Norwalk is, I don't know, maybe 75% empty most days now. So, it's a far cry from where we were pre-pandemic, and who knows where we're going to return to. But I would love to see the city control that garage either through the parking authority and have more control over who parks there, only because I do fear it would be a more attractive stop for a lot of Norwalk, Wilton residents, assuming a pre-pandemic kind of commuting pattern. Of
The
course.
stipulation that we had with the state when we negotiated this whole parking easement thing was that whatever parking is provided has to be separate from any other parking. So it can't be in the same parking garage as the residents and the retail and things like that. So the way that this building 2.1 has been designed, there's actually an entrance to the parking garage that's in the side of this building, which will go down. And that's the area, and it will only go down. And that's the area that would be within the building for the commuter parking. And obviously there would be a pedestrian exit over at this point so that it's closer to the station itself. But the entrance to the parking for the retail and for the residential above would be right here. So and then you'd go either at grade for the retails, you'd be behind the retail park itself, or you'd be going up a couple of levels, which is what these blue levels are right there, for the parking for the residential. So it's completely segregated between the commuter parking on the one side and the retail and residential on the other. So from our perspective, who runs it, whether it's the state or whether it's the housing, or not the housing authority, the parking authority, is really not, it wouldn't make a difference to us.
Thank you.
Other questions? All right, if not, David, we'll look forward to receiving further information from you as early as next week.
Thank you. From our perspective, I would like to see if we can get this thing to a scheduled public hearing as soon as possible at this point. One of the things that, from our timetable, and I know that that's not necessarily yours, but we've run out of steam. We're about to finish building C of the curb. And all of our trades that we've got and that we've had busy and employed for several years now building these projects, we're going to have to let go because we really don't have anything further to build. So we'd really like to be able to get to a point where we have the master plan approved and can then get ourselves to the point of site plan approval of the next building so that we can get those started.
Okay. Well, thank you again for the presentation. Let's move on. We're pretty close to closing out. We're going to skip over this next item. It's approval of the minutes from the January 12th meeting of the Zoning Commission. We don't know exactly how or if we can do this.
I think that was the January 4.
I mean,
What
the sixth,
I'm,
the sixth was the last
6, yeah.
zoning commission. This one was of your organizational meeting last week.
Yeah, the
Ah.
12th is your first joint.
oh, so
meeting.
you, I apologize. You've taken it, you took it off. The 12th, we actually can vote on. But it was the final meeting of the zoning commission. We don't know if if the former members of just the zoning commission can vote on that, or if it's simply something that we'll never vote on and just leave hanging out there. But that's fine.
Permanent draft form is, I think, what you're suggesting.
Right.
Can be done.
Then we do have approval of the minutes of our meeting on the 12th. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes? Please.
Make a motion.
Thank you, Steve. That's Steve Ferguson. Is there a second?
I'll second
it.
But I have a question.
Okay, Tammy seconds. Typically, we do this with a show of hands. Let's do it that way. All those in favor?
Tammy
Hold
had a
on,
question.
I'm sorry, Tammy had a question, I
Could I-
believe.
just
Sorry.
Oh,
for-
I'm sorry.
That's all right. She,
okay. A point of clarification. It seems to me now that there actually aren't minutes, there's just a video of our meeting. Is that what we are approving?
No, there
No.
should be written minutes too.
Yeah, there should be written minutes.
Okay, I'm sorry. Well,
Took
then I'll
long.
excuse myself because I didn't see those.
Are there others who haven't had an opportunity to review them? I mean, if so, we can put this off until our next meeting.
But wasn't the meeting on the 12th, the sort of introductory meeting?
Yes, it
Yeah,
was.
Right, they should be pretty basic minutes.
there were no actions taken at that meeting.
Right.
So
right.
I'm ready to approve
Oh, all
them.
right, well then I guess
Uh,
if there's nothing really actionable in them then, but I was only there for part of that meeting, so I'll just excuse myself. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. By a show of hands, all those in favor? All right, I won't ask for abstentions or no votes because it looks unanimous. Comments of the director, Steve?
Sure, I'll be really brief. And one thing I wanted to, we'll have to talk about a little bit more once we get settled in through the next couple of months, just because the next couple of months with the capital budget process. And there's a definite pent up backlog and demand for applications to get in front of the commission. You'll notice that with Attorney Waters tonight, and I've had conversations like the last 2 weeks nonstop with different projects. It was quiet for a couple of months and it's just kind of blowing up right now, which is a good thing for the city overall, but it's just going to mean more work for me and then more work for you. So sorry about that, but that's kind of what you signed up for. One thing we do need to do, because the state, when they redid some of the zoning enabling legislation last year, they put in requirements for commission training. So in the past, we had done training through the state of Connecticut has offered some training. Also, Wesleyan University used to host like an all-day kind of legal forum, and several commission members went to that. That was on a Saturday. I can't remember if they did it virtually last year or not. So that's another option, but we do have the ability to send folks to those kind of training sessions. You don't have to pay for that. Obviously, that comes out of the city budget. And what we also plan on doing in-house training on various topics. We did, if you recall, at the organizational meeting, brief overview on the types of applications. And I know there were some questions tonight about how you handle the special appropriations, and the 824 is a new concept for not only the new members, but also for the zoning commissioners, because they're just not used to those and what their actual role is on those things. So we're going to get more into training, and we'll spend more time on that. And hopefully the staff memos that come out for the applications kind of spell that out for you in as much detail as we can provide. The other item I wanted to mention was just in terms of communications outside, particularly to the press. Typically, if the chairman defers to staff, then myself or perhaps Brian or somebody else might handle that. But typically, we do the communications out to the media if there are questions on, an action of the commission or what was voted on and why. We typically try to respond to those and coordinate through the mayor's office so that they're in the loop, that we are communicating with the press so they're not kind of caught blindside by that. So just in case you're asked, probably better to defer to the chairman or myself for any kind of a public comment on anything. I'm not sure if anybody has any questions on any of that. Hopefully they leave you alone, but you never know.
These days, they typically don't contact us, go directly to Steve, which is just as well. It's also your prerogative, should you get a call, to simply have nothing to say. My way of dealing with it, frankly, has been not to return their calls. So I try to stay off the record and let the staff handle the press as necessary. I was next item or comments by commissioners. I was pleased because I don't think we necessarily talked about it, to hear a number of you indicate that you'd been out to the sites that we were meeting about. On the zoning commission, we've always stressed that. It's important, if we're going to be talking about a site, a location, that if we at all have the opportunity, that we go out there ourselves and take a look at it, so that we can speak more intelligently about it. And again, I was very pleased that several of you, and probably more than I know, have made a point of visiting some of the sites that were on our agenda tonight. With that, comments from any of the other commissioners?
Yeah, this is Steve. We have a great group.
I agree, Steve. Thank you. And since Steve has spoken up, I'll mention for those of you who are on the capital budget committee, the first meeting is tomorrow at 5:30 p.m.
Mr. Schulman?
Yeah.
I'm one of those people that definitely likes to go out and see the sites, so to speak. And to that, can we request from Steve and Brian that if they know something is going to be on our agenda, can they send it out, sort of one at a time rather than waiting until an entire agenda is put together? So because we meet every other week, you don't have as much opportunity to, go out and look around.
Steve?
Sure, as best we can do that. I mean, yeah, I guess we'll have to talk about that, but I think we can accommodate that for the most part. Sometimes things like the Glover Avenue one tonight, that was kind of a last minute, like, little discussion with the Attorney Waters about getting it back on the agenda. So trying to accommodate things and do things at last minute, sometimes it just happens.
Sure. Or Steve, how does the process work when something like that comes in? Do we as commission members have to be proactive and constantly check the website page for planning and zoning, or do you send us a message that something has come in?
So it's a good question. We haven't been doing that until the items popped up on an agenda. So what we do, there's probably often the case where, an application, we upload it to the site before you guys see it. But that's something, to your point, I think we could probably say, hey, we just got this in, if you wanted to start taking a look at it. I think that's fair.
I think that would be so helpful. Whether, you can include the link if you have time, or if you don't have time, and then it goes onto the website page. And sometimes it says pending, but it's been there for 2 years. So, now that we're all familiar with all the projects, we'll know what's new, but otherwise, how do you know which one is the most pending or the newest pending?
Yeah, we are working with one thing with IT to try to, the city's web pages are not easy to work with from a design perspective. So we're trying to get two sets of applications. Anything that's been approved should be on one page, and anything that's still in front of the commission should be on another, but we almost lost. So that the North 7 application, Brian had to spend a few hours yesterday moving all the files back onto the page, because instead of archiving it like it said it archived it, it deleted everything. So we had to redo it the second time. So that was a lot of extra work for no apparent good reason. So.
One of the things we've also tried to do is not accept things at the last minute. The presentation on 7 was an exception, because that was just discussion between us. Excuse me, between us and Attorney Waters. But when things come in at the very last minute, we do have the right, if the cause is not because the staff has made some error, but because it simply come in at the last minute, is to try not to accept it for that meeting, to push it back if necessary, because we do need time to review these things. It's hard to review something that comes in the day that we're discussing the application. And we have to be fair to ourselves. And that's also why we're taking these brief breaks during the meetings. I mean, typically, when we meet physically as a group at City Hall, we almost always took a quick break. Since we've gone online, we haven't done that much, but I think we ought to continue to do that. Give people an opportunity to get a drink of water, a cup of coffee, use the bathroom, whatever, so that we're not sitting here staring at a screen continuously for 2 or 3 hours. So.
I have one comment.
Yeah.
And it was to Tammy's point about visiting sites, which I think is so important. And I know Tammy uses Google Earth in her real estate business, I'm sure, and Street View. I use that almost exclusively now instead of going out, unless there's some part of the site I can't see. But it's really saved me a lot of time. And I just use that little, I don't know why it's a guide, but it's a little guide. You put them down in the street and suddenly you're there and you spin around and you can see the context. You can go down the street, you can go around the block. It's like so much easier than actually doing it. I can't say it's as good, but I do that with a lot of the applications. And it's really been, especially in the subdivisions and things we worked with on the planning commission that were not as large as some of these larger applications, but little minute things like that. Is there a sidewalk? Is there no sidewalk? All that stuff you can see on Street View. And it really, that technology has really kind of changed my life.
All right. Anything else before we adjourn? Sure. Go ahead, JJ.
Hey, I just have a question. Will we be meeting in person anytime soon?
God, I hope not.
Not up to us. It's essentially up to the state and up to the mayor's office when things open up again. But it's the expectation that once we get past this pandemic, that we'll be meeting again in the council chambers. And it really is a different experience. I'm not sure it's a better experience, but it's a different experience for sure.
I
Okay,
second
thank you.
Galen.
What?
All right, I'd like
I
to.
second you. I agree.
I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion,
Okay,
Mike,
motion
Second.
made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, stay well. See you early in February.
Good.
And
Thank
some of you, see you tomorrow.
Right.
Cool.
Good night.
Thank you.
Right.